special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Sunday the 7th of May. Today, history in the making. King Charles has been crowned at Westminster Abbey, marking the symbolic beginning of a new royal era in Britain. Well, after the ceremony comes the party. This evening's star-studded coronation concert at Windsor Castle promises to be something special.
The Metropolitan Police has received further backlash after arresting 50 anti-monarchist protesters. The Human Rights Watch called the arrests incredibly alarming, though Scotland Yard said it acted in a proportionate manner.
Very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
Morning. I'd love to know today how you're feeling today, because I don't know about you, but we feel absolutely drained.
We do.
Emotionally drained after yesterday. It was such an emotional event that actually today it's just like, oh, really does feel like the morning after the night before, doesn't it?
We were so excited yesterday, weren't we?
Wow.
And when that carriage went by us, because it was perfect timing, wasn't it, really? We finished
just
here
come off air.
and we could go and see the carriage go past here. We were so excited, like children.
Like, yeah, but it was just, there was just something really special of seeing the King and Queen on the way to the coronation in that carriage. Got a little wave from Charles. Give him a wave.
Oh, did he wave
Yeah,
at
he
you?
waved back.
Oh, wonderful. He was
Well,
looking over the other side to me.
I think it was at me.
Oh, well. Do you recognise you?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
sure.
yes.
But it just felt so special yesterday.
Did.
And so today it's just a little bit like, oh, heck. But the party isn't over.
No.
There's lots happening today. It's a big lunch today across the country if you're taking part in that. There's a big concert at Windsor Castle tonight. So actually we need to get ourselves back into gear, because it ain't over.
I'm kind of thinking, you know, yesterday was like the wedding and today's like the reception.
Yeah.
All the parties are happening today, and hopefully it's drier for us today. Do let us know what you're up to today. Are you taking part in the big lunch? If so, what is on the menu? Will you be taking part in the street
Quiche.
party? Yeah.
Gotta be quiche.
Coronation quiche, perhaps. Maybe coronation chicken. I know a lot of people are traditionalists out there. Let us know if you're going to the concert tonight, if you're one of those lucky people who's got a
20,000,
ticket. 20,000 people.
20,000.
Let us know. Are you excited? I'm sure you are. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
But of course, it's all coming after King Charles yesterday promised to pledge his life to his country at his coronation. It was a historic ceremony watched by billions of people across the globe.
And as we say, the celebrations are going to continue across the country today. But first, let's just have a recap of what happened yesterday with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
History in the making. A newly crowned king and queen greeted their subjects who, despite the rain, erupted in cheers and applause. The stage was set inside Westminster Abbey for a ceremony dating back to 1066, full of traditions with a modern twist. A VIP guest list of world leaders and foreign crowned princes were for the first time joined by community heroes who make a difference to people's lives. An opportunity for them to mingle with TV royalty as well as the real deal. Prince Harry, no robes or special uniforms, proudly displayed his military medals. No longer a working royal, he flew alone to attend his father's coronation. A fleeting visit, no time for small talk with his brother, instead flying back to California to attend his son's birthday celebrations.
Hallelujah! Christ is risen.
Led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the ceremony was full of tradition, religion, and service was at its heart.
Whether they be thrones or dominions.
Rishi Sunak, a practicing Hindu, gave a reading from the Bible as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Will you solemnly promise and swear?
His Majesty was presented to the people and swore an oath to them.
I solemnly promise so to do.
The most holy part of the service, the King donned a simple white shirt. This was a moment between him and God. Screens shielded him as the Archbishop of Canterbury anointed King Charles with holy oil. Perhaps the climax of the service, the moments the monarch received the royal regalia. The spurs, the sword of state, the super tunica, the orb, the sovereign's ring, a glove worn by his grandfather for his coronation, the sovereign's sceptre with cross, the rod of equity and mercy, and St. Edward's crown.
Pledge my loyalty to you.
The Prince of Wales, heir to the throne, pledged his allegiance to the King with a kiss on his father's cheek. King Charles's consort, who's been by his side for decades, was crowned and anointed as Britain's Queen. Their Majesties retired to St. Edward's Chapel. King Charles and Queen Camilla wore robes of estate to leave the Abbey. The coronation procession saw the largest number of military personnel since Winston Churchill's funeral march through central London. A small group of anti-monarchy protesters jeered in Trafalgar Square, but were mostly drowned out by royal fans. In the procession to Buckingham Palace, the Prince and Princess of Wales, along with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, waved at onlookers from the Australian state coach. The royal family, pages and ladies in attendance smiled and waved for the jubilant crowds. A scaled-back flypast roared over central London. Today, coronation celebrations continue across the country. The third Carolean era has well and truly begun. Cameron Walker, GB News.
What an image to end on. Actually, I just think that's so special. Because, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a crown on the balcony.
Well, no.
Before,
You'd
like
only see
that.
it at a coronation, wouldn't you?
I just think it's absolutely magical. Anyway, one man who can shed a lot more light on everything is former Lib Dem Minister, well, not everything, but most things, and royal author Norman Baker, who's here. Good to see. What did you make of it all, Norman?
Well, it was meticulously planned, wasn't it? And it went without a hitch, which I suppose is a good thing. I felt sorry for people who'd been rained on, who'd been waiting for ages, because clearly that wasn't ideal. They seemed happy enough, though, in the rain.
Didn't seem to matter.
Didn't seem to matter to those who were there. No, they were perfectly happy with that.
Yeah. And what were the highlights for you? What moments stood out?
Well, I mean, that whole thing was completely novel, wasn't it? Because there's not been a coronation for 70 years. So looking at it, all the aspects really were new to everybody, because nobody was there in hardly anybody was there in 1953 when it was last. When it last took place in the Abbey in those days, of course, it would have been very different. And indeed, on television, it was black and white and a small kind of 5-inch screen or something. If you were lucky enough to have a television,
Extremely low definition.
Very low definition, very murky, and everything else. So it was quite an interesting experiment in a way for people to be able to see this on television, as you say, see it across the world.
I tell you what, surprised me. I didn't realise she was going to have such a big role, but almost the star of the show was Penny Mordaunt. I mean, that was extraordinary.
Well, that's an interesting sentence of yours, that she was the star of the show.
Well,
I would say she was, almost distracting in
their
role,
though,
yeah.
Yes. Well, it is interesting that she was given that role, and of course we had the Prime Minister there giving his address, which was also interesting because there's a juxtaposition between politics and royalty, and a juxtaposition between politics and religion, as a matter of fact, and they don't always sit very easily together, those three elements. And to be honest, I'm not sure they sat brilliantly together yesterday, in the sense that it's an alien environment for the Prime Minister to come in and give an address like that. The royal family has to be non-political, and therefore bring politics into it is slightly odd as well. And of course, in terms of religion, it does. I mean, I heard this at the Accession Council. I was there, of course, as a Privy Councillor when immediately after the death of the Queen, when Charles was officially made king at that point. And this oath, which refers to Protestant religion, does sort of jar a bit if you're... I'm not a Catholic, but it does jar a bit in terms of the wording, which has been now, of course, since the Battle of the Boyne onwards, and probably needs to be revised. But it was welcome, I think, at the end, that we had other faiths being represented. I think that was something that Charles wanted. He'd already said he wanted to be a defender of faith rather than a defender of one faith. But I mean, clearly the vows are the vows, and you had to go through this rigmarole with the Protestant religion, but I think it was slightly out of keeping with where we are these days.
Do you think? See, I quite like that, but then...
But you're not a Catholic, presumably.
I'm not a Catholic, no.
I was struck by, obviously it's an ancient tradition, has been virtually unchanged for over 1,000 years, but there were these modern touches, weren't there, which was quite striking in that setting, such as female bishops, which have obviously only been in Church of England since 2016. They were there, they were visible. Penny Mordaunt, as you say, kind of taking front and centre there in front of the king, holding that mighty sword. I mean, there were touches of, and religious leaders, as you say.
Yes, I think for the palace, if you like, there's a challenge, because what they want to do is to retain the traditional elements of the ceremony, at the same time move towards modernity and have a nod, if you like, to the present day. And it's difficult sometimes to marry those two elements together. I mean, we've still got the 1760 golden coach, which I have to say looked a bit rickety to me, but they seem to manage all right on it.
Oh, I think it looked magnificent.
But in 1760 it's going to be not quite a limousine, is it? I gather it's quite uncomfortable. And top speed of 3 miles an hour, which is almost the same as London buses.
Yeah, very nearly, just a bit faster. But that's part of the beauty of it, isn't it? The fact that we do have this pageantry, all this history, because it's about that sense of continuity from centuries gone by, and although it evolves and the monarchy evolves and the country evolves, it still gives us that sense of our history, doesn't it?
Well, as I say, there's a challenge to retain traditions where they are useful, and to jettison them where they appear to be out of date, and that's a constant assessment that has to be made. Of course, the very fact that there's a public procession is not centuries old. It dates from the 20th century, essentially, the idea of processions, because in the old days a king or queen would have been crowned immediately after the death of the previous monarch, because that's what the coronation is about. And in a sense, you have to say, well, Charles went to the Accession Council, which I was at immediately after his mother's death. He took his vows there, which was similar to the ones yesterday, and he's been king for 6 months. So in a sense, the coronation was slightly odd in that sense, that he's already been king.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean, but I mean that's happened for. Obviously, it was the same for his mother. In fact, the time between his accession and the coronation was actually quite short in the great scheme of things, wasn't it?
Well, it's been certainly it was longer, I think, with his mother. But if you go back to Victoria, to Queen Victoria, then I think she was effectively crowned almost. I think I'm right in saying almost in private, and almost immediately after she became the Queen. And I think it was Edward VII who started the arrangements whereby it became more public in the way it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I think something that was really highlighted yesterday was the very close relationship between the church and the monarchy, was a very religious ceremony, wasn't
Yes, it
And
was.
also a close relationship between the armed forces and the monarchy. King Charles, it really touched, didn't he?
Yes.
That salute in the gardens of Buckingham Palace after that procession.
Yes. Well, I mean, the church, of course, in this country, the church is the established church, which is coming out to the Protestant point, whereby there is a link with one particular religion, which is an historical issue, or an anachronism, you might say, if you take that view. Many people think the church should be disestablished and separate from the royal family in that sense, and indeed from the government in that sense. And the royal family, of course, has always had very close relations with the armed forces. They tend to be colonels in chief of different regiments and so on, so that is to be expected. And the oath, which was quite controversial, you remember that was changed at the last minute. That oath, of course, is a similar oath to that taken by members of the armed forces, by the police, and indeed by members of parliament, I might say.
Yeah. And talking about swearing your allegiance, though, I thought that was one of the most touching parts was William swearing his allegiance to his father, and then the kiss on the cheek and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
I just thought, and look, you know, it might have been expected, whatever their relationship, but to me, it just seemed to cement what we know about the two. I just thought it was lovely.
Well, certainly, he had an oath, of course, which was different to anybody else's oath, and it was very public. And of course, he is next in line, so it was entirely appropriate, I suppose.
A liege man, wasn't it? So
Yes,
liege man.
slightly old language, but yes.
But look at that! Don't you think that's? I don't know. I just think that's a really lovely moment, and from the king to the heir apparent and all that, and the kiss. And he says thank you, William, there, doesn't he? So the lip readers tell us.
Yes.
I just think that's really nice.
Well, it's where family breaks through all of this pomp and pageantry and tradition, and you just see a father and a son, and that really tender moment. I think it's really lovely.
Well, of course, you will find with the royals, and of course also with politicians, dare I say, that there is an activity which is normally private for other people, which is carried out in public, and therefore you have to allow for the fact that what you do is going to be interpreted by other people as well. One of the things I find quite offensive, actually, is this business of lip readers who then tell you whatever he's been saying, because if you want to have a conversation with somebody, you don't really want it reported to the papers the next day. And there are these lip readers who will tell you what Harry said or what William said. And we could really do without that, I think.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, but, you know, everything's on camera, isn't it?
I know.
It's just what happens, isn't it?
It just means that they have to be absolutely consciously aware of the camera all the time, consciously aware of what they're looking like, what they're saying, and I just don't think that's a very relaxing position, and I think people should be allowed to have conversations without them being reported.
Well, no, perhaps a fair point. And Norman, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I will say that we really can't say anything nasty about lip readers, because I think that would be really awful to be rude about lip readers, wouldn't it? So there you go. I should say I stole that from Edna Everidge.
Oh,
there you go.
may she rest in peace.
It's a great joke.
Oh.
There you go. So please don't be offended, lip readers.
It's 17 minutes past 6. Let's see what else is making the headlines this morning. And the Metropolitan Police has been criticised for arresting 52 people on the day of the coronation for an array of offences, including conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. Graham Smith, the chief executive of the anti-monarchy group Republic, was held for nearly 16 hours. He says there is no longer a right to peaceful protest in the UK.
At least 8 people have been killed, 7 wounded after a man opened fire at a mall in Dallas, Texas. The gunman, who authorities think acted alone, was killed by a police officer. 3 of the victims are in a critical condition.
Reports of a suspicious object in Omar last night led to a police station and surrounding homes being evacuated. The police service of Northern Ireland cordoned off the Derry Road area and asked members of the public to avoid it.
Now, leading up to the coronation, there was only one story on everyone's lips, that of the relationship between Charles, William and Harry.
Yes, once inseparable, they were kept far apart on the day, with Harry conveniently being hidden behind Princess Anne's feather.
Yes. Yes, I don't know if that was quite deliberate.
No.
I don't know. But anyway,
He was eclipsed by it, though.
he was, but you know,
Yes.
he was in and out, and I think that's probably the best thing. Let's talk to former butler to King Charles, Grant Harold, who joins us now. And I want to talk to you, Grant, in a moment about our preparations for the celebrations which are continuing today. But can I ask you about the relationship between William and King Charles? Because I think, personally, it seemed like a very tender moment between the two yesterday.
Absolutely. Good morning. Thank you for having me on. You're right. They've always been very close. As you know, I worked for the family for several years, and all three of them, or four of them, I should say, were close with each other. And like you, I found it quite significant when I saw him with his father. Obviously, you know, very different. You know, obviously, when I was there, this is somebody that was in his 20s. He's now 40. Prince of Wales pledging allegiance to his king. So it was quite significant and also slightly moving as well at the same time.
It is very moving, isn't it, to see those family moments, as I said earlier, in these traditional ceremonies that have been virtually unchanged in 1,000 years, to see a son kiss his father and then for the father to say, thank you so much, William. It really was a beautiful moment. I mean, we do have to touch upon the other blood prince who was in the congregation yesterday, but sitting 3 rows back. What did you think of Prince Harry flying in and flying out quickly afterwards? Was that the right thing for him to do yesterday, or should he have spent longer?
No, I think it was the right thing to do. I think, yes, he should have spent longer as well. I think, sadly, to me, this summarises the relationship where it is. And I think the reality is the relationship of father and son is definitely being damaged. I've always said that I think it can come back from that, but now I'm wondering if that is, to an extent, the end of that relationship. To my mind, he was there to pledge allegiance to his king, to support his overall family. But I find it quite, from a personal point of view, and again, somebody I knew really well, I found it really moving to see how distant it all appeared. You know, the very few members of the royal family appeared to speak to him. We saw him outside the Abbey, even at moments on his own. I understand heading straight back to the States, got there was at 3 a.m. in the morning. Obviously, it was his son's birthday, which is why he'd gone back. But I assumed that there would be an occasion to see his father, to see his brother, and obviously those days have gone. So it's almost like he did his duty to his king and country, and that was it. It was not a family affair. And I think that, as I said, summarises where they are at the moment with the relationship, which is sad.
Yeah, well, it is sad. Look, on to happier matters, though, because it's the sort of coronation lunch today, isn't it, across the country? If people want to have their street... They may have well have had a street party yesterday, but if they want one today and something else to enjoy, how do we best go about it? What's the best way to hold these sort of events, do you think?
You know, if you're having your own street party, I always think the first thing you've got to do is notify the neighbours. Make sure the neighbours are aware that, you know, even the ones that may not enjoy the parties, the street parties, and try to involve everybody in it, even if it's somebody that's maybe not able to be there. You know, that's the important thing, is about the community spirit. And I think it's important. And if somebody doesn't want to be there or can't be there, it's always good to still take something round, kind of show a bit of willingness. Hopefully it'll be received. But, you know, it's planning ahead, getting everyone involved. And people worry about, you know, what to have and what to serve. I think the thing is, just have fun and everybody brings something to the table. If it's a last-minute bit of planning, bring something along and just have a nice time, because it's a chance, you know, with all the sad things that have been happening in recent years, it gives us a chance to, at last, celebrate, be happy and you know, kind of be excited about this moment just now. I'm sure the King will be quite, you know, celebrating with everyone else today as well.
And Grant, I wanted to ask how you're feeling this morning and your reflections of yesterday, because you are the former butler to King Charles III, as he is now. How did it feel for you to see him crowned?
I got to admit, I found it very emotional. It was strange because I think you both know that I adored the late Queen. I was lucky enough to know her. And to see him crowned, I was very proud, without question. I put that on social media. It's I feel very proud that I had the opportunity to serve and get to know the man and known him for now over 20 years. But as I said, there was a part of emotion to it, because it's very final, isn't it? It's suddenly saying this is now the King, the Queen, and you know, our late Queen is obviously obviously no longer with us, and time has moved on. So it's just, I think for quite a few people maybe that knew the Queen, it's probably a sad time as well, but equally joyous.
Give us an insight into the man then that you know, in the sense that I saw here just as the carriage on the way to Westminster Abbey. It's just at the top of the Mall where we are now. I mean, you know exactly where we are. But just before the crowds. And so I saw them, gave him a little wave, and then 30 seconds later, he hits the crowds on the Mall. What would he have thought? Because it must be quite... I mean, even for someone as used to things as he is, it must have been a bit overwhelming just to be faced with the thousands of people cheering as soon as they got sight of him.
Absolutely, and I mean, as we know, it's been a while since the crowds turned up for an event for them. I was even thinking about it. I believe it might be even his last wedding, which I was lucky enough to be at. And prior to that, obviously, his other wedding and his investiture. So it's not often there's been these kind of big occasions purely based on himself. And I'm sure, knowing what he's like, he'd be very humble. He's a very humble kind of person. He'll be really grateful and probably a bit overwhelmed at the fact that everybody still turned up, and he'll be pleased. You can see him on the balcony. There's a lot of emotion. I can see a lot of emotion in his face, and I'm sure, I have no question, he adored his late mother, and I'm sure he was there. A lot of memories have been coming flooding back, and equally thinking and grateful that the public, as always, turned up there to support the monarch and the new queen, and I'm sure that meant a lot to him. But I think I read yesterday, it said he had the weight of the crown now on his shoulders, and that is true. He's now taken this responsibility on, and it doesn't matter how long you prepare for it. I think because working there and seeing what the lifestyle was like, the schedules, it's not easy. This man works so hard, and I don't think people realise how hard he works. I mean, I can openly say I used to go to bed quite late at night, and he'd still be working, and I'd be up in the morning really early, and he would be already up. This is somebody that's dedicated to the job.
Grant, it's really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you for the insight. I'm glad you found yesterday emotional, because I think, well, I did,
yes,
and Ellie did, and I think most people watching and listening did as well. Thank you very much indeed.
And I hope you got a wave back from the thing yesterday.
I did. It's made my day, let me tell you.
Thanks, Grant. Oh, how wonderful to have that insight into the man and what that moment would have meant for him as well.
I mean, look, I'm sure I would very much like to meet him at some point.
Well, hopefully we can.
He
may still come and inspect us today. I'm still holding out for that moment. It'll be lovely. Feel free to pop down if you're watching GB News this morning.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty. Please do pop down.
Yeah.
Say hello. I've got a pan of chocolat floating around somewhere. You can maybe have one of those as well.
Is it organic?
I'm sure we can find something.
Well, there you go. Look, still to come, we've got a coronation concert tonight, of course. Is it going to light up the nation? We're heading to Windsor to see how they're preparing for the star-studded event. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Good morning to you. It's 29 minutes past 6 and you are watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and Ellie live from Buckingham Palace. And it's the morning after the night before. There you go.
It is.
Or the day before, we should say.
But it's coronation weekend, isn't it?
Isn't it?
So it doesn't stop yet, which is why we're back here at the Palace.
Of course.
And following that magnificent ceremony yesterday at Westminster Abbey, and of course everything that happened here at Buckingham Palace, we've got more celebrations right across the country today.
Yes, many communities will host their own street parties as part of the Coronation Big Lunch, and the Coronation Concert will be held in Windsor Castle at 8 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, so what's going to happen there for those 20,000 lucky punters who get to go? Let's head to Windsor. Lisa Hartle is there for us this morning. Morning to you, Lisa. So how are preparations going for this huge event tonight?
Good morning. I feel like I should whisper because it's so early and so quiet at the moment, but obviously later on it's going to be very busy around here with, as you said, 20,000 people having luckily got those tickets to the concert, which will also be attended by the King and Queen and other members of the royal family. And there are rumours that Prince William will be giving a speech, but they are just rumours. But on behalf of his dad, that is something that we're hearing. Hugh Bonneville, best known for playing Lord Grantham in Downton Abbey, will be hosting the event, and there'll be performances from the likes of Take That, Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, Andrea Bocelli, and a performance from the Royal Ballet, amongst many other performances that they're expecting. The stage will be shaped like a Union Jack, lit up in red, white and blue, fanning out into the crowd. And it's also going to feature pre-recorded video sketches from the likes of Tom Cruise, Tom Jones, Dame Joan Collins and Bear Grylls. And there's also going to be an appearance from Winnie the Pooh. So we'll remember Paddington Bear featuring in the Platinum Jubilee, but Winnie the Pooh's going to make an appearance this time throughout the concert, sharing facts about the King. And a highlight will be the landmarks illuminated across the UK too, with choreographed lasers, projections and drone displays. And of course, the public celebrations won't just be this evening because, as you can see behind me, there's already the bunting out in the street behind. There'll be street parties taking place around here and across the UK as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it, that we're going to keep going with all of this. And of course, a lot of focus on Windsor tonight, but the fact we can all get involved today is a really lovely thing, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's also like when we were speaking to crowds yesterday along the Mall. It's not just about it's about the community, and it brings people together to celebrate this occasion. Families get to make memories and all of that. And I mean, I know my family are taking part. I know lots of people that are taking part in street parties. I think there's over 2,000 taking place in London alone. So a lot of people celebrating across the UK.
Absolutely, Lisa. And we didn't get to speak to you too much yesterday because we know that the signal was down on the Mall. Obviously, thousands of people gathering there. You can understand why that might be. But tell us what the atmosphere was like on the Mall and what were people saying that you were chatting to?
Oh, it was so lovely because even at one point I was at the front of the crowd. So obviously the people at the front there had been there for at least 24 hours. Some of them obviously there all week. There was a lady that was trying to share her chocolates with everyone, and they were sharing food. There was a group of people I chatted to thinking they'd been friends for a long time, but they just met there and they were, oh no, we've only just met each other, but now we're all friends. And it was just such a lovely atmosphere. People from around the world wanting to come along. Everyone's got their own reasons as to why. Some of them wanted to witness history being made, whereas others were just love the royal family and they wanted to be in London for the occasion. But yeah, the atmosphere was so lovely. It was such a joy to be there.
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for bringing that to us. Really good to get a flavour of the atmosphere there yesterday on the Mall. And enjoy Windsor today. We're very jealous.
Yes, enjoy every second of it. Loads of you getting in touch actually this morning, which is marvellous. We're having to read them off our phones today, so bear with
Printer's
us.
broken.
We've run out of ink. Barry says, what a most wonderful British event it was. And Sean says, I'm so thrilled with the whole weekend's celebrations.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hold mine really close because my eyesight's going. Barry said, yeah, most wonderful British event. Fred said, today my church is having a celebration after communion with lots of homemade goodies and fizz. Sounds good.
Yes.
Then it's home to prepare something for my daughter on her third consecutive 12-hour shift as a mental health nurse. Well, she's obviously been working so hard, Fred. So give her our best wishes and I hope you're really enjoying the celebration.
There's a really nice one from Alban who says, my mum and I were watching the whole coronation yesterday. I can't describe to you how ecstatic she was when seeing the royal parade. She was feeling as if she'd been living in a fairy tale. We're so proud of British traditions. And I just think that's really lovely. Really lovely. Keep your thoughts coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk and share your thoughts with what happened yesterday, but also what we've got today. Get that coronation quiche in the oven.
And stay with us as King Charles fills the front pages of today's newspapers. We're going to be taking a look through them with Emma Wolfe and Alan Miller. That's next. This is GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
No, it's not 9:37. It's 6. We'll be off air by then. It's 6:37.
He's
Good
wishing
morning.
the morning away.
Do you know, I'm distracted because just with seconds to go, Ellie's here taking pictures, taking selfies with the crew.
Oh, it's our last day here, and I want to thank the crew because they've been amazing. They've been doing 12-hour shifts. They are freezing cold, and they've just been amazing. They've kept us on air, haven't they?
They've
been brilliant.
sort of.
And everyone back at
they're all
base as
very,
well.
very good, apart from John, obviously. But you know, what can you say?
So I was just trying to capture the moment.
There it goes. It's amazing what goes on behind the scenes. We're just like the singers in a band.
We are.
They're the musicians.
I'm basically sat on you. I need to.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Let's have a look at the front pages. And it's special today because have a look at all these front covers. They're just amazing. The Times. It doesn't matter what the words are, actually. Just have a look at the pictures. There you go, Sunday Times, that gorgeous shot of them sort of smiling at each other on the balcony here behind us.
Yes, he became the oldest new monarch yesterday. Of course, with Queen Camilla by his side. Really interesting, that one. Mail on Sunday. It captures a special moment between the King and the Queen on the balcony. They've gone for exactly the same picture. And, darling, it was a triumph.
Well, maybe that's what they were saying. Who knows?
What they were saying.
Let's have a look at the Sunday Express for you. And that to me is the shot. Actually, I think that's the picture of the day, because he's just that wave and smiling, crown on. I just think that's a fabulous, fabulous picture.
Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it? The robe and the crown.
Yeah, it's just great.
The Sun have gone with crowning glory on their front page. And there's
more of a solemn,
looking
more of a solemn
solemn
picture in
within
the Abbey.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I mean, they're all historic pictures. But as I say, it's the Sunday Express, wasn't it? That one that just did it for me.
That was your favourite.
Let's go through the papers in a bit more detail this morning. Emma Wolfe and Alan Miller join us in the studio. Morning to you two. Emma, let's have a look at the Sun on Sunday, should we?
Yeah, why not? Well, I mean, the coverage is all over the front pages, as you say, and some really, really beautiful photography, actually, really very evocative, I think, of the day. Obviously, they're all souvenir editions for this Sunday, but I think that people will be holding on to these papers for many, many decades to come. And aren't we lucky to have been part of this in a way? Even though, you know, I'm not a rabid monarchist, and I'm sure Alan in the studio with me will be shuddering, but I mean, I think it's a really special event to be a part of, whatever you think of it, and first coronation for 70 years. So the front page of The Sun is just talking about, the coronation, the crowning glory of the King. And I think it kind of sums up how moved people were by the occasion and how the kind of special moments and the pomp and ceremony were also balanced by the really human moments. William kneeling before his father and kissing him, which is... got me a bit emotional. I thought that was beautiful. And I didn't expect to be moved by most of this. I thought that it would be a long old watch. But actually, I thought it was very, very moving. And I thought there was enough fun as well, enough comedy, you know, the gossip, the sort of Harry turning up, the feather in front of him. But the very beautiful ceremony of King Charles and Queen Camilla being crowned.
It was absolutely beautiful. Alan, what did you make of yesterday's event?
Well, it was obviously a hugely impressive pageant. Lots of choreographed, curatorial, historic, important, actually, traditional and cultural representation. I think it's also indicative that this attempt to blend the old with the new, which obviously throws up some challenges because much is based on tradition. And when you bring in new things, particularly some of the new ideas about whether it's equality, diversity and inclusion and things like that, it throws up questions about the very institution which people have had. We know that many people are very, very supportive, although there is a bit more of a kind of distinction between sort of, let's say, 62%. About 10 years ago, it was 75% that were firmly committed and supported. I think there's also, it's interesting here because it says that in the Telegraph, the King and Queen took their place in history just as he hoped together. Again, very beautiful pictures, but also draws attention to the fact that how do you bring in these new modern themes when you want to retain an element of continuity and tradition? And it seems that whilst many are celebrating and we're out over the weekend and we've got this bank holiday and they're enjoying that, it does raise that question, particularly when the monarch himself has said that perhaps we should have a slimmed down version of that. And so lots of questions, but I think many people really enjoyed the pageant. And obviously there were some concerns about some of the other areas as well, which we'll come on to, but around protests and stuff like that.
Yeah, oh well, let's slip straight onto that in the Sunday Mirror. They're sort of calling it a divided nation. I don't think that's a fair headline, really. But there were some protests taking place, anti-monarchist protests taking place yesterday, Emma, and 52 people were arrested.
Yeah, so there were thought to be around... The headline is Divided Nation, as you see there in the Mirror, unsurprisingly, probably. And around 2,000 protesters are thought to have targeted the royal procession yesterday, and a total of 52 arrests were made. Some of these protesters were, as you see there, clad in yellow. Some were shouting, "Get a real job, abolish the monarchy." Some had placards, and as you see, waving their placards and protesting as the procession went by. The Met Police are saying that they seized various lock-on devices, which is what protesters use to, attach themselves to railings and things like that, and that stops them being moved on. So that's what the Met Police are saying. Apparently 6 Republicans were arrested while just unloading their placards many hours before the ceremony. And some reports of a senior police chief telling his officers, arrest anyone with a megaphone and we can unarrest them later. So I think the police were, they talked about this being, the commander talked about this being a once-in-a-lifetime event. So I think there was a lot of precautionary kind of action. People, worried that they were going to start locking on, that they were going to start disrupting the procession. Obviously, there are questions about this, absolutely valid questions that Alan raises about, valid protest about the fact that we can deal with 50 or 100 people shouting at a procession, and holding placards. If they're doing that, that is peaceful protest, that is lawful, and that's completely valid. But many Republican campaigners and Human Rights Watch and people like that are saying that these arrests were incredibly alarming and that they're really unhappy about it. The police are claiming that it was about 32 of the 52 arrests were on suspicion of conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. So I think this debate will probably carry on over the next few weeks. What is not lawful, what is not public nuisance. Is it okay to have a megaphone and to be disrupting a royal procession, such a beautiful ceremony, to be shouting? I mean, if it was me and I didn't agree with something, I wouldn't go along and shout at it. I wouldn't go along and try to disrupt a ceremony, but of course people have that right. So I think we'll see lots more debate around this.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it is? I mean, are you concerned, Emma, by what we saw yesterday? I mean, I sort of think, 2,000 protesters, 52 arrests, and so there was concern about this locking on, which would have been problematic, and I don't think that is legal in and of itself. No. But I mean, I don't know. You would expect them to be on extra high alert, wouldn't you, during something like yesterday?
And that's what I'm sort of alluding to, is that it was such a high security event. There was so much concern around keeping things under control, and there were Just Stop Oil protesters as well, who are obviously not, necessarily part of the anti-monarchist kind of protest. So I think there was real concern with the police, but we also have to just remember that people are allowed to stand there with placards. People are allowed to talk through their megaphone, although not in certain areas in central London, which in itself is another debate.
I think it also should be said...
Alan, what did you make of these scenes yesterday?
Yes. Well, I think it should be remembered that we've just had new legislation come in. Apparently, that was used to do this. I get very concerned with the idea in a free nation with this amount of tradition and history, where we stand on the shoulders of those who fought and died for our freedom, that we don't feel that we have enough authority and can keep calm and carry on and allow people to have their democratic right when they have organised, actually, and discussed with the police in advance, and they have an area where they say, and they hold up placards and they say things. Any institution, it should be robust enough to have that happen. And some of the claims that sort of linking them to other fears around terrorism and things like that, I think are very dangerous as well and preposterous. We know that the public is concerned with things like, quite understandably, with Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion when they do criminal damage. But what we've seen there is an unwillingness, a failure of dealing with the laws we currently have. And I think this is a very chilling moment. People should be concerned at the idea that you can be arrested in advance, even when... Yes, chilling, in the sense that it's very worrying.
Hold on, Alan. Hold on, Alan. I mean, look, 52 arrests. We don't know if these people are going to be found guilty of anything or not. 1,948 people, if the figures are right, weren't arrested during that protest. I mean, it's not as if they cracked down on the whole thing, is it?
Well, I think that the idea that you can stop people, which is what the policing bill is saying now, that you can have protesting banning orders because you may not just be allowed to go. Where does that stop? When we look at anything in the context of things, why should you be stopped when you've going to democratically go and protest something? It's a very important question for us. And to say that 50 is a small number in comparison, I think it misses the point that, you know, we should have a free society where people are allowed to do this. We should be calm and we should deal with things in a reasonable and rational way. And this seems to be something that's very concerning to me.
Yeah, but hold on. What you're arguing there is that these 52 weren't doing anything that was against the law. Now, maybe they weren't. You know, that's yet to be decided. But they were arrested on suspicion of that. They weren't just arrested. The police had their presumably had their reasons for making those particular arrests.
Yeah, we do need to find out more detail, but everyone that was arrested, it seems as though, regardless of anything else that happened anywhere else, everyone, the head of Republic, for instance, it was discussed in advance. What has been claimed, and we'll see, but it's been sort of largely reported and agreed by most, that they've been arrested in advance of doing anything. So at 7 in the morning, coming with their posters, going to the area that there was allocated in Trafalgar Square. And the simple point is, if you've arranged a peaceful demo and you go to have a protest and then people say, well, we're extra nervous, it's a one-off, there's precedents that are set, and we've got this new policing bill, and it's something that's of concern. And in a free democratic society, the right to protest is paramount. It's as important, and as everyone who wants to celebrate this important historical moment, as important and intertwined with everything is our free rights to protest and to have conscience and to be there.
OK. Emma, Alan, we've got to leave it there for now. We'll see you a little bit later on. Thank you.
Now, the wet weather yesterday, just waiting for the auto cue to catch up there, may have done little to disrupt coronation celebrations on the ground, but it did cause some problems in the air.
Yeah, more than 60 aircraft are expected for the balcony flypast yesterday, but only a handful actually made it. Will Hollis has the full story.
Weeks of rehearsals and hours in the cockpit, all leading to just a few moments above Buckingham Palace. The flypast is a firm favourite in royal occasion, and in the days before the coronation, those flying for the King know the value of their role in the ceremony. Crew Captain Billy Cooper is station commander here at RAF Coningsby.
We see a lot of these events, don't we, be they parades and or flypasts, but nobody ever tires of these things. We know from experience that everybody really enjoys the aircraft coming down the Mall, everybody loves to see the Typhoons, everybody loves to see the Red Arrows, and it's a real sense of togetherness, I think, and pride in our nation.
When the day of the coronation arrives, an army of aircraft enthusiasts parachute in from across the country, itching to see some action.
Well, it's a special day, but I don't usually fly on a Saturday.
I'm just here to see the aircraft take off, ready for the coronation.
We come down quite often, but it's nice to see so many people here as well.
I just want to get as much of it on film for future generations.
With 60-plus planes and choppers, including the iconic Spitfire and Lancaster bomber listed to fly, the schedule is packed. But it comes with one unwelcome addition, the rain. And as it begins to pour, doubt the flypast will go ahead wash us in.
Well, it's unfortunate, it's rather atrocious here, but what's it like in London anyway?
It's very, very wet, and yeah, I think it's not going to happen.
There's a bit of bright sky on the way, so we're kind of keeping an eye on that.
I can't feel it under this umbrella, anyway.
And then comes the sound of engines, followed by movement as jets head for the runway. One after the other, Typhoons launch into the sky, 22 in total, heading toward London. In the capital, though, the weather gets worse. As the King and Queen emerge on the balcony, the flypast is scaled back for safety, abandoning the Battle of Britain memorial flight. Still, cheers from the crowd as helicopters cross the sky. until the roar of the red arrows streak red, white and blue above the city. Signalling the end with fewer planes than planned, the joy on the ground glides only higher. Will Hollis, GB News.
Absolutely amazing. You know, and it's a shame we didn't get the full thing. But nevertheless, I've been in, well, not a Red Arrow. The Red Arrows, the aircraft are Hawk T1s that the RAF use. And I've been in one.
And was it amazing?
The RAF took me up in one that went through the lakes at ridiculous speeds. Unbelievable. It's an experience of a lifetime.
Oh.
Unbelievable. Terrifying, but unbelievable.
And I'm so glad we did get to see the fly past, even though it was a smaller scale back version.
At least we got something.
We still got to see something, got to see the red arrows. For many people, that was the absolute highlight of yesterday. Let us know what yours was. What were the standout moments for you? What will you be remembering? Obviously, the coronation, the crowning of the king. That was really moving for me. When William kissed his father, that was really quite emotional. Penny Mordaunt, I think she looked beautiful. I really wasn't expecting her to have that much of a front row seat and that much of a role. Exactly, and that outfit was made especially for her. Said she wanted something made for a woman, so that's what she'd had designed especially in her role. And she carried that sword. Apparently she was doing press-ups and she was weightlifting in preparation for holding that 8 kg sword for over an hour. So hats off to her. I think she was a class act yesterday, and I think she looked beautiful. And it was so good to see women at the forefront of things yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, I thought her role was really impressive.
Yeah,
actually.
What about you? What was the standout moment?
I think just the actual crowning itself, really, and hearing Zadok the priest as the anointing was happening. I think because that's just so iconic, isn't it, from the footage we saw from Queen Elizabeth's coronation. But just that moment when the crown is placed on his head, I don't know. I just think it's that little bit of history, isn't it? It's that very moment that has happened for century upon century in this country that we just don't normally get to see. We've only seen it once before in very grainy old images, and to actually see it in high definition on big screens and all the rest of it.
It felt special, didn't it? Yeah, magic, special. Let us know how you felt, because it certainly felt that way for us. gbnews@gbnews.uk. We're going to try and share as many as we can today as we reflect on the historic moments, the historic scenes that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, this is GB News live from Buckingham Palace.
Hello there, good morning. I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest weather for GB News. Looking at the forecast for Sunday, plenty of sunny spells to come, the risk of a few heavy showers and feeling quite warm as well. The reason for this is this weak ridge of high pressure just about holding on for Sunday to give settled weather. However, more Atlantic weather systems move in for bank holiday Monday, bringing wet and windy weather. Bit of a west-east split first thing Sunday morning. Best of the sunshine across western areas. The east quite grey and damp in places, some mist along the coast. But it should brighten up here through the morning and into the afternoon. But we will see some sharp showers developing. But for the vast majority of us, having a dry day, plenty of sunny spells. And feeling quite warm. Temperatures in the high teens to low 20s for many of us. Still a bit chilly though along some eastern coasts of Scotland, where the wind just comes off the North Sea and it stays quite cloudy here. Into the evening time, a fine end to the day for many. However, thicker cloud will bring some outbreaks of rain across parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland, and the rain spreads a little further eastwards as we move into the early hours. The best of the dry weather holding on across the far east, and the wind starting to pick up too. No problems for temperatures, holding up in double figures to start Monday morning. Bit of early morning sunshine across the far east, some low cloud across the east coast though, but the wet and windy weather across the west will slowly move its way north and eastwards, affecting many of us. The rain could be heavy at times, perhaps just a few glimmers of sunshine and the driest weather holding on across northern Scotland, also the far southeast of England. Behind it, heavy showers following as well. Temperatures lower compared to Sunday, but still reaching the high teens in any sunnier breaks, and it stays unsettled through the next few days too. We'll see rain or showers across the country and temperatures generally around average, perhaps a little above where we see the best of the sunshine. See you soon.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Sunday, the 7th of May. Today, well, it was history in the making. King Charles crowned at Westminster Abbey, marking the symbolic beginning of a new royal era in Britain. But after the ceremony comes the party, and this evening's star-studded coronation concert at Windsor Castle promises to be something rather special.
I'm in Windsor, where tonight 20,000 people will be attending the coronation concert, along with the King and Queen and other members of the royal family. So we'll be catching up with people here ahead of the celebrations tonight.
The Metropolitan Police has received further backlash after arresting 50 anti-monarchist protesters. The Human Rights Watch called the arrests incredibly alarming, though Scotland Yard said it acted in a proportionate manner.
Very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
Oh, I love the fact so many of you getting in touch with your thoughts and about yesterday, but also about today as well. Jen's been in touch. Hi, Jen. Saying our daughter will be going to church this morning with her RAF cadet squadron. They'll be celebrating the coronation at the village church with the rest of the community, and cadets will renew their promise to the new monarch. We're so proud of her, quite rightly so as well. Lovely thing, that.
That's so lovely. Sean's been in touch saying, I'm so thrilled with the whole weekend's celebrations. Steve has been in touch saying, thank you for a great show yesterday, Stephen and Ellie. You did us all proud. Thank you very much, Steve. We honestly, we love being here, and we loved yesterday as well. Ed in Virginia has been in touch saying, happy to see you're back at your post today, Ellie and Stephen. It was quite a full day of celebrations yesterday. It absolutely was. And still lots more to come, lots of partying to do.
I like this from Sean, who says, what a wonderful spiritual day for Great Britain. So proud of our kind King Charles. And he does come across as kind, doesn't he? There is a gentleness to him, which I think is very appealing, actually.
And do you know what? On the balcony, I don't know because I haven't had a chat to him, but my sense was on the balcony that he looked very grateful, actually, looking out on the crowds. He had that in his eye, like, thank you, thank you. You had that sense when he was looking down at everybody. You'll like this one.
Oh, God.
Jake says, what a weekend this is becoming. Me and my cat Barry thoroughly enjoyed everything yesterday, and today we're looking forward to our special lunch.
Oh, now what special lunch is Barry having?
Yes, Jake and Barry, what are you up to
See,
today?
I didn't get
Let us
anything
know.
special for Timmy. I should have got him a tin of tuna or something.
You should have
to
put him in a
celebrate.
crown or something.
Oh, that wouldn't last.
Oh.
No, but maybe a tin of tuna. Maybe it's time to get one on the way home today.
We had some
Maybe I'll
great
do
pictures yesterday of pets actually dressed up, didn't we? We had Rudolph, I think it was, who's really stayed in my mind. And he was wearing Union Jack. Do you remember?
Yeah,
Union
that was
Jack.
Friday, wasn't
Was it Friday? It was all blurring into one, all these celebrations. But anyway, if you've got any pictures of pets dressed up, please, there's always time for that.
It's always nice. Yeah, do keep your thoughts coming through. GBNews
Yes.
at gbnews.uk. Of course, it's all coming after King Charles yesterday was crowned after promising to pledge his life to his country in what was a historic ceremony watched by millions of people.
Well, the celebrations continue across the country today. But first, let's have a recap on what happened yesterday with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
History in the making. A newly crowned king and queen greeted their subjects who, despite the rain, erupted in cheers and applause. The stage was set inside Westminster Abbey for a ceremony dating back to 1066, full of traditions with a modern twist. A VIP guest list of world leaders and foreign crowned princes were for the first time joined by community heroes who make a difference to people's lives. An opportunity for them to mingle with TV royalty as well as the real deal. Prince Harry, no robes or special uniforms, proudly displayed his military medals. No longer a working royal, he flew alone to attend his father's coronation. A fleeting visit, no time for small talk with his brother, instead flying back to California to attend his son's birthday celebrations.
Alleluia! Christ is risen.
Led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the ceremony was full of tradition, religion, and service was at its heart.
Whether they be thrones or dominions.
Rishi Sunak, a practicing Hindu, gave a reading from the Bible as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Will you solemnly promise and swear?
His Majesty was presented to the people and swore an oath to them.
I solemnly promise so to do.
The most holy part of the service, the King donned a simple white shirt. This was a moment between him and God. Screens shielded him as the Archbishop of Canterbury anointed King Charles with holy oil. Perhaps the climax of the service, the moment the monarch received the royal regalia. The spurs, the sword of state, the super tunica, the orb, the sovereign's ring, a glove worn by his grandfather for his coronation, the sovereign's sceptre with cross, the rod of equity and mercy, and St. Edward's crown.
Pledge my loyalty to you.
The Prince of Wales, heir to the throne, pledged his allegiance to the king with a kiss on his father's cheek. King Charles's consort, who's been by his side for decades, was crowned and anointed as Britain's Queen. Their Majesties retired to St. Edward's Chapel. King Charles and Queen Camilla wore robes of estate to leave the Abbey. The coronation procession saw the largest number of military personnel since Winston Churchill's funeral march through central London. A small group of anti-monarchy protesters jeered in Trafalgar Square, but were mostly drowned out by royal fans. In the procession to Buckingham Palace, the Prince and Princess of Wales, along with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, waved at onlookers from the Australian state coach. The royal family, pages and ladies in attendance smiled and waved for the jubilant crowds. A scaled-back flypast roared over central London. Today, coronation celebrations continue across the country. The third Carolean era has well and truly begun. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Camilla hasn't got the royal wave, right? It's too big.
Oh,
big.
you want to teach her, do you?
Oh, it's that. Who was it? It was the Queen Mother, wasn't it? It was the Queen Mother who had the very...
Oh, see,
Something
I
like
think
that.
they've binned that off. I don't think we saw anyone doing
No,
that
it's
yesterday.
not the same. The Queen. If you see the Queen Mother do it now, it looks really funny.
And she
That's,
was doing it so it was less work on the hands.
I don't
wasn't she?
know.
I think that's why she did like that. It's quite nice, actually, isn't it? It's a fan. I could get used to that.
Oh, she could, yeah. What did you call yourself the other week? The People's Princess?
Yeah, we're going to raise that again. We were doing a GB Views, and for once I was actually in touch with the nation and what your thoughts were. Usually it's you. Usually you've got your finger on the pulse with the mood of the nation.
I don't think they think you're a princess, darling.
No, that's a shame. I'd quite like to be. Don't think it's going to happen for me anymore.
Anyway, see what former Lib Dem Minister and Royal Author Norman Baker makes of it all. She's not, well, she's a bit of a princess.
Why not? I think she could be a princess.
Thank you, Norman. I appreciate that.
I think the most astonishing thing this morning is that there's a cat called Barry.
Yes.
That's
It's a great
Barry,
name.
I love it.
great name for a cat.
I love all the pet names that come in. What were your first impressions of yesterday? What struck you? What are the moments that stood out?
I think it was just the sheer organisation and the detail that had been gone into, and clearly there was a huge amount of rehearsal went on, a huge amount of planning, and of course it went off without a hitch, which was important. But just the sheer volume of what was there was actually just quite astonishing. And I know it was shorter than the Queen Elizabeth's one, but nevertheless it seemed to be quite full.
Well, I wondered about that because there was a bit of a hoo-ha when it was announced it was going to be shorter, but actually it was a very full 2 hours.
It was full, yes.
I don't know that I would have wanted it any longer.
No, I don't know. Well, none of us were there in 1953, so we can't say how it went in 53, but it was certainly, it touched all the bases, I think, in terms of what was intended.
Yeah.
I mean, our armed forces, we must just say a word about them. They were absolutely spot on, pristine, perfect yesterday, weren't they? They did us all so proud in that pouring rain as well.
Well, they always are, aren't they, to be honest with you? I mean, they're well rehearsed, well drilled, and they'll have gone through this in huge amount of detail beforehand on, no doubt, numerous occasions, not simply the run through the middle of the night, which there was before, but they'll have gone through this for weeks beforehand, to be honest with you. And but of course, they're trained to obey orders, they're trained to work in formation, and they did spectacularly.
I mean, look, you know about these things more than most of us, but I was really surprised. I was not expecting all the everything that happened in the sort of procedural, if you like, the touching of all the sort of artifacts and rings and the jewelled sword and all this sort of thing. I didn't know any of that went on.
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know all of it went on either. It's a bit of a revelation to me that these matters occurred. But, you know, as we were talking in the last hour, there's a mix of what's been handed down over a very long period of time in history, with an attempt also, not always very easy actually, to accommodate the modern as well, and to marry those two elements. And clearly those elements to do with the orb and everything else were very ancient.
Do you think they succeeded in marrying together the traditional elements with that touch of modernity that they really wanted to bring into that?
Well, you can always find reasons to you can improve matters, but I think, you know, clearly a lot of people thought it went very well indeed. And as you say, there were millions of viewers across the world looking at this, and certainly the people on the street were very happy, weren't they not?
Oh yeah. Well, go on. What do you make of all of that? Because typically British crowds are a big international element as well. But the rain did not dampen spirits.
Well, people will probably discount the rain in this country. They probably expect it to come along. But I have to say, actually, this morning, very different atmosphere, of course, this morning, because all the events have gone now. We're here early in the morning. But how nice it was to walk through St James's Park first thing in the morning, just as the dawn was breaking, the birds were singing, and the gas lights were still on, actually, along the path from Green Park Station. It's a very nice atmosphere this morning as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it really, really is, and it's lovely to reflect on all those beautiful moments of yesterday, and I had the time to do so. And one of them we were talking about in the previous hour was that moment with the Prince of Wales and his father, the King, when he kissed him on his cheek.
Yes.
He pledged his allegiance. He kissed him on his cheek, and you could see King Charles say, "Thank you, William."
Yeah, that was
Beautiful
a personal moment as well. That was a very public moment, of course, but it was also a personal moment, and I think demonstrated the close relationship, I think, between Charles and William. But you have to then reflect on the fact that 3 rows back, of course, there was Harry, slightly hidden by Princess Anne's feather, but he was there, and I just wonder what Harry was thinking at that moment.
What do you think he was thinking?
I think he probably found the whole thing rather awkward, to be honest with you. I mean, he had to be there, and I think he probably wanted to be there for his father, but clearly he'd become sort of self-detached through his own activity, and therefore he wasn't playing the role which he might have played had he not done so.
Can I just say, and this will not be popular with a lot of you, I'm aware, I felt quite sorry for him in this, not in terms of what happened on the day, because I think that was right. He came in, he paid his respects,
yes,
and he went again. But he's sort of being criticised for sort of going home straight away. But he would have been criticised if he hadn't.
Steve, but that's exactly right. I mean, it was a no-win situation for him. He couldn't not come. He couldn't come. He couldn't be in the front. He couldn't not be in the front. He couldn't stay afterwards. He couldn't not stay afterwards. Whatever he did was going to be criticised. So I share that view, actually. It was difficult for him.
Do you think he handled himself correctly then? Do you think he came, he saw, he went?
He came, he saw, he conquered. Yes, I mean, yes, he did. I think that was exactly right. He had to be there, and he had to not be too visual, I think, in terms of the way he's semi-detached. So I think he did handle it right, and I hope he enjoyed what was there. I hope he enjoyed his father's moment.
Yeah, at least he was part of it. He was, which is, more than perhaps would have happened under slightly different circumstances. So there you go. Norman, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. I just think it was a magnificent day, best of British.
Oh, it really
if you
was.
like.
I mean,
more views coming through. Thanks, Robin, over in the newsroom, who's sending a lot of these through.
He's working hard.
Oh, now this is interesting because I missed this bit, but my mother said she had a cry at this bit. Steve in Birmingham says one of the highlights for me was the chorister addressing the king at the beginning of the service.
Oh.
I mean, so I missed that bit.
I missed that bit as well.
I need to watch that back,
that.
but apparently my mother was in tears.
Oh, do you know what?
Linda
so
was
many
in
people
tears in Spain.
had an emotional reaction to it. I think, and that struck many people with surprise. Loads of you getting in touch with those standout moments. Thank you so much, Barry. Another Barry. Perhaps not the cat.
Well, you never know.
One. Maybe it is. My standout moment was William kissing his father. It was the most personal moment in the most public display, similar to what you're saying, Norman, and one to watch. Penny Mordaunt, says Barry.
Oh, Malcolm in Carlisle's agreeing, though, on the other point. My standout moment was the page boy stood in front of the King in Westminster Abbey and welcomed him in the name of the King of Kings, showing the composure and confidence of a veteran. Oh. Which... yeah, I do think that's quite nice. Carol in Shoreham Beach. Hi, Carol. What are you after, Carol? She says, first and foremost, the excellent coverage of the coronation by the GB News team. Second, the excellent rider who controlled his frisky horse at the beginning of the parade down the Mall. I think that was the lifeguard who had a particularly frisky horse.
Yes, and did so well. I mean, no,
he could have controlled it well from
I thought he did a good job.
From getting the analysis yesterday of Blues and Royal, or now former Blues and Royal, we said it could have done better.
Oh, I see.
Could have done, but there is a lot of competition between the Blues and Royals and the lifeguards in the household cavalry. So
I thought
take that with a pinch of salt.
I think he did a very good job. Alan's been in touch saying the whole day was amazing, but for me, the standout moment was when the troops gave the King 3 cheers in the garden of Buckingham Palace. The King was visibly moved.
Yeah, and David says, as an ex-military man, I was amazed by the precision of the 3 cheers given to the King and Queen by the men and women of the armed forces. Fantastic. Well, they've been rehearsing that, but I know it's so precise, isn't it?
It's so quick as well.
It's so quick.
Hip hip hooray! Like that.
They did it at the National Remembrance Service in the Albert Hall in November, and it's just so full on. But it's lovely. It's magic. All the things magic.
Apparently, you could hear it all the way down the Mall. It kind of rang out, that hip hip hooray. We're getting nods from the cameramen here. Clearly, it made the most magnificent sound. And you're right, Alan. I think for the King, there were a few moments where he looked visibly moved yesterday. It was when William kissed him on his cheek, when he was on the balcony looking out at the crowds, and those 3 cheers. I think those are the 3 moments where we saw the human King.
I'm having technical
feeling
issues
moved. Do you want me to stick it back on?
Do you know,
it's because your ears are so petite.
They're not. I've got...
Is that better?
I've got massive ears. So how this thing is falling off my ears, I do not know. I'm going to have a play with it.
Yes.
So there you go. In the meantime, keep your thoughts coming through. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Let's go through some of the top stories for you this morning at 18 minutes past 7. And the Metropolitan Police has been criticised for arresting 52 people on the day of the coronation yesterday for an array of offences, including conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. Graham Smith, chief executive of anti-monarchy group Republic, was held for nearly 16 hours. He says there is no longer a right to peaceful protest in the UK.
At least 8 people have been killed and 7 have been wounded after a man opened fire at a mall in Texas. The gunman, who authorities think acted alone, was killed by a police officer. 3 of the victims are in a critical condition.
And reports of a suspicious object in Omagh last night led to a police station and surrounding homes being evacuated. The Police Service of Northern Ireland cordoned off the Derry Road area and asked members of the public to avoid it. Oh, here we go. Right. The officer riding the horse on leaving the Abbey could have done better. But the one on that we were talking about, the first horse here, was just spooked.
Yeah,
so that was fine.
Yeah.
That wasn't the rider's issue.
Yeah, so he did a good job.
So he did a good job, but the one leaving the Abbey could have done better.
Did you see the horse with the drums on either side?
The drum horse.
The drum horse, and he just went to the side and kind of sliding along the vale. Did you see that?
Yeah,
that was one of the highlights for me.
But I just think, I mean, look, to give them their due, I think all of those members of the armed forces on horseback, I think it's remarkable how, I know they're all very highly trained and the horses are incredible animals, but how you keep them under control and keep them in position and, you know, stop them getting spooked and all the rest of it, I think it's just phenomenal. The horsemanship involved in all of that.
Especially the musicians, who many of the time aren't even holding the reins, are they? They were playing their clarinets and things and just riding along on their horse. They weren't even holding the reins. It was remarkable, really, with the crowd noise and the number of people out on the streets.
So lovely to see.
Brilliant, brilliant. Keep those views coming in and what were your highlights yesterday. But following that magnificent ceremony yesterday at Westminster Abbey and here at Buckingham Palace, more celebrations are still on the way across the country.
Oh yes, it ain't over yet. Many communities, of course, many of you are hosting your own street parties as part of the big coronation lunch, or the coronation big lunch, however you want to say it. And of course we've got the coronation concert at Windsor Castle tonight at 8 o'clock.
Oh, it's all going on, isn't it? And joining us now from Windsor is our very own Lisa Hartle. Good morning to you, Lisa. It's still very early there in Windsor. But how's it looking there? How's it feeling on the ground?
Good morning. Well, it's such lots of effort have gone into all the bunting that's put up around the town, and behind us is Windsor Castle, which will be the backdrop to the concert this evening, with 20,000 people who are lucky enough to get tickets will be in attendance, along with the King and the Queen and other members of the royal family. Prince William is rumoured to also be giving a speech to his dad, which is just a rumour, but we'll see if that happens. Hugh Bonneville, best known for playing the Earl of Grantham in Downton Abbey, will be hosting the concert with performances from Take That, Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, Andrea Bocelli and the Royal Ballet, amongst others. The stage is going to be shaped like a Union flag, lit up in red, white and blue, and reaching out into sections of the audience. It's also going to feature pre-recorded video sketches from the likes of Tom Cruise, Dame Joan Collins, Bear Grylls and Sir Tom Jones. And another figure making a special appearance is Winnie the Pooh. So Winnie the Pooh will have a special appearance throughout the evening, sharing facts about the King. And of course that echoes what happened with Paddington Bear with the Queen, that famous scene where the Paddington was taking tea with the Queen for the Platinum Jubilee. And another highlight's going to be a moment when landmarks are illuminated across the UK, choreographed with lasers, projections and drone displays. So tonight sounds like it's going to be an amazing event. But of course it's not all about this evening, because today street parties are going to be taking place across the UK as part of the big lunch. So more and more people can celebrate the coronation today and going into tomorrow.
Oh, Lisa, it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? And it's so brilliant that all of us can get involved wherever we are in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, like we were saying when I was chatting to people yesterday, for some people it's about just celebrating the royals because they love the royals so much. For others, it's also about that community spirit, is bringing people together that perhaps might live on the same street all year, don't barely get to speak to one another. But it's a time to spend that time together. And for others, it's just doing something so you can say you played that part in history and you celebrated that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, thanks very much indeed. We'd love to know what you're getting up to today in terms of your coronation celebrations. You may well have done something yesterday. A lot of people had sort of parties yesterday after the service. But I think, you know, today if you're getting... I know the weather's not going to be great, but nevertheless, if you can just have a little get-together somewhere and just meet up with people and mark the occasion. It's about marking the occasion.
Yeah, and being together, and it is that sense of togetherness. And if you know, even if you're not a royalist, you can appreciate, I think, the scenes yesterday and people, old and young, people from all over the world, coming together for one common cause and to celebrate something. And isn't it wonderful to celebrate something and to smile?
Well, yeah, even if you're not a royalist, but you're still British, are you? And this is an important part of Britain's history.
British culture.
Yeah, but I think most of us like to. Embrace it all, don't we? I mean, I do. There's something about the royal family, I think, because it's not necessarily because of who they are. They're only people like the rest of us, but they are a part of our history and our heritage and our future, and I think that's nice. And I have to say, Charles seems like a nice man, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. There is something gentle and kind about him. Which comes across really, and Camilla certainly, who I have met, as I may have mentioned once or twice this weekend, but I was really struck by her and by how interested she was. It was a JDRF, which is a type 1 diabetes charity, with which she's patron, and she was so involved and so knowledgeable and so lovely, actually. And I think that makes a difference. Meeting her. It was a lovely experience.
Oh, that's lovely. And people don't forget those interactions, do they?
No,
I mean,
you don't.
It's those impressions that we made. I have heard that about Queen Camilla, which we can call her now.
Camilla, yes, the Queen.
That you're struck by her intelligence and her interest when you meet her. But we've got lots more to come. We're, of course, going to be reflecting on history being made yesterday. And we're going to be asking, will it reflect on King Charles's reign as a Christian monarch? We'll be discussing the ceremony and more next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Q.
Oh, good morning to you and welcome back. It's 29 minutes past 7. There's a big delay here at Buckingham Palace, which is why Stephen just had to direct me from next to me.
She wasn't listening to our director.
Oh dear. You're watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and Ellie, and we are live from Buckingham Palace.
We're slightly delirious.
Still here.
We are a bit delirious, and I think it's that whole sense of it's been so emotionally draining all week. I mean, it was such a full day yesterday. You did sort of at the end of it. I slept like a baby last night, let me tell you. And you're just like, oh, but it's not over, because we're still going, and the party's celebration's still going. We've got the big coronation lunches across the country today. Let us know if you're holding one. We've got the coronation party at Windsor Castle tonight with all the Lionel Richie and whoever else take that, I think.
Katy Perry, who you now know who that is.
I now know who that is.
After yesterday. And of course, we are still reflecting on those magnificent scenes, those really special moments that we saw yesterday. And of course, one of those moments being when the monarch was anointed.
Yes.
Not only appointed as a monarch, not only crowned, but anointed. That's a moment that really struck many people yesterday. So we're talking today about why that took place. What's the significance of it? And of course, really, really important to a king who is very, very close to his faith, and that really, really matters to him.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we know the Queen, we've always known the Queen had a very, very strong Christian faith. And actually, in a sense, I wasn't aware about Charles until after the Queen, and the first comments he made, the first address he made after the Queen died, and he talked about his faith in a way that I really haven't heard him talk about before. Let's talk to historian and columnist Martin Whittock, who joins us now. Really good to see you this morning, Martin. I mean, we are really getting a sense, aren't we, of just how important Charles's faith is to him.
Yes, the service represents a tradition of Christian coronations that go right back to the coronation of Edgar in Bath in 973. You talked about anointing, and you're absolutely right. That's a central part of the service, and that links with King David. That's why they sing Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet, because that was when Solomon was anointed. That is the most sacred part of the service. And so yesterday combines modernity with a very, very deep history that goes right back to the Old Testament and links to that coronation at Bath. I'm speaking to you from near Bath in 973. And it links to the faith of the king, and it reminds us that Christian faith was central to the service yesterday. In fact, with all the regalia and the pomp and the pageantry, which is amazing, it can sometimes be missed that the whole service, the whole British service of coronation, takes place within a service of Holy Communion. The whole point of this is the monarch draws close to God, God draws close to the monarch, and that monarch starts a new stage in their lives. And that is the key part, as important as all the other amazing, glittering ceremonial.
And there is so much religious symbolism within this ceremony, isn't there? Just try and talk us through a little bit of it, Martin. It was really, really good to see yesterday that kind of detail. I mean, even when we're looking at the orb, obviously the orb is there to symbolise the world, the globe, and then on top of that all is the cross.
Yes, absolutely. Christian faith is central to this, and it reminds us that that is a central core within the monarchy. As you say, there is the orb. It talks about the fact that here is secular authority, but it's authority under God. When we see the prayers taking place, when the anthems are sung, when they declare the link back to, as I say, Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet, it's reminding us that when the king was crowned yesterday, when the king was anointed yesterday, all these things take on board very, very deep symbolic events. They link back to, as I say, not just 1,000 years of British history, English history before that, but they link to the Old Testament, they link to the New Testament. In fact, it's interesting that the phrase anointed one is one of the titles that we apply to Jesus. In fact, Christ means the anointed one. So this is saying that just like God anoints Christ and makes him special, obviously, central to Christian faith, so God anoints kings as his deputies on earth. Now, that is a very extraordinary thing to say, but in fact, that's what links the Old Testament, the title of Christ, and the most sacred part of yesterday's service, the anointing with oil, which was blessed in Jerusalem. And interestingly enough, the one piece of the coronation regalia that survived from before the Republic, which was 1649 to 1660, is the coronation spoon. So it's really symbolic that we think probably 12th century piece of regalia, the rest was flogged off and broken up during Oliver Cromwell's time, but it's symbolic. The one piece of regalia that survives from the Middle Ages is the thing that is used when the Archbishop dips his finger in the oil and puts it on the monarch. And I think that's really central. For everything that's come since then, it's that anointing and that faith and the singing of praise and the asking of God's blessing. That is what this service is all about. It's profoundly Christian as well as profoundly historical.
Is it almost then, I mean, the way you put it, and I'd never thought of this before, but is it almost like a christening where you welcome a child into the family of Christ and into the church? Is it almost like that when you were saying, you know, this is something completely new for Charles as a man now, and it's a totally new chapter in his life?
I think it is. And it's interesting that one of the words for the oil is chrism. And in fact, in the ancient traditional christening services and baptism services, it was chrism oil that was placed upon somebody, accompanying the actual use of water in baptism. So in a sense, yes, I think it is like a christening. It's like a new start. I mean, linking back to 973, for example, which is the earliest anointing we have in this country, Edgar waited till he was 30 before he got crowned. Why did he wait so long? Because that was the start of Christ's ministry. Traditionally in the gospel, he was 30 when he started his preaching. And Edgar was kind of saying, I'm now starting a new phase in my life, just as Christ started his ministry age 30. Now, obviously, King Charles is 74, and not every monarch lives as long as Edgar took to get anointed. But it just makes the point that this service is the marking out of a human being for a special role. He's been king since the Queen died, of course, but at this point it is formalised, it is stated, he is newly empowered for the new role. That's the claim of this coronation service. It's more than just gold and jewels, it has profound spiritual significance. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, Martin, do you know, it's really interesting to talk to you. I wish we could go on longer. Thank you very much indeed. And I think it's really important. I didn't realise until watching it yesterday that it was, you know, sort of It's quite as symbolic as it is. There's so much detail in there that I just didn't realise was going to happen.
Something I didn't realise until David Starkey's commentary yesterday, actually, was the whole symbolism of the orb and the sword being taken from the altar to Charles and then back again. It's the whole idea of it coming from God and that power coming from God. Lovely, really, and all that Christian faith is at the core of everything. It's brilliant, really good.
It's flies. There you go. But nice as well that other faiths were at least represented there, because that is part of our culture now in the UK. So they may not have been sort of actively part of the service, but they were there, and I think that's important as well.
And the last moment, actually, before King Charles exited the Abbey, was greeting those religious leaders, and I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah.
And we can see there the leader of the Greek Orthodox Church there, who did actually do a blessing, didn't he, upon King Charles yesterday. Really quite moving moments, I'm sure, for many of you.
Yes, I think so.
Do let us know what you think of that. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And now, of course, it's not just the King, it's the Queen as well. We have a King and Queen for the first time in my lifetime. We're going to talk about Camilla, Queen Camilla, as we go through the papers in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know,
All
Kate
sorts
Moss?
of Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:42. Good morning to you. We're live at the Palace. Of course, I've just seen, if you don't follow us on Instagram, then you need to follow GB News Online on Instagram, because I've just seen they've done a post of me and it just says Stephen Dixon's coronation tie. That's it. That's the post, which I just think is hilarious. It's nice. Bought it specially.
Yes.
Very nice. Whoever posted that in our online team, thanks very much indeed. Glad you like the tie.
What a compliment to be posted on Instagram.
I was used to saw it on your phone. I was like, what's that picture of me?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. You've been.
Can't argue with that.
Well, yeah. And look, we've coordinated for the second day in a row.
Yes.
I just said, is this a new chapter in our friendship? Perhaps, where we coordinate outfits all the time.
Yeah, she doesn't coordinate with me. I have to coordinate with her. Let me just make it clear.
We have to buy some more ties.
Yes, I'm going to buy some more ties. Let's have a look at the front pages because, well, guess what they've got pictures of? But they're great pictures. They're great pictures. Let's have a look at the Sunday Times, should we? The crowning glory. And it's a lovely picture of Charles and Camilla on the balcony. I think it's a shame that they haven't just gone totally full page with it and it's surrounded by text.
I know, some of the papers have gone with that. It would be nice if it's just a picture front page. The Mail captures that same picture, obviously a very popular one, the couple sharing a smile on the balcony with a look they think that says, darling, it was a triumph.
Yes, maybe.
Perhaps that's what they're saying to each other.
Maybe, that's what you said to me yesterday after the show, isn't it? Sunday Express, this is the picture for me. Happy and glorious is the headline, but I just think that it's Charles with his crown and a wave, and he just looks happy and thankful, and I don't know. I just think that's the picture that's the picture of the day for me.
You like that one, don't you?
I really love it.
I'm struck by how he couldn't obviously lift his head up to look too far up the crowd, and also he couldn't really watch the red arrows because, of course, they've got the crowns on their heads to contend with, so both of them just kind of had to look up with their eyes. That's something that was giving me a bit of a smile yesterday.
Yeah.
And the Sun, let's have a look at the Sun, shall we? They've gone with the headline, Crowning Glory, and a picture of King Charles just after he'd been crowned in the Abbey, so a bit more of a solemn choice there from the Sun on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay,
Beautiful, though.
Well, it's time to go through the papers in a bit more detail now. This morning with Emma Wolfe and Alan Miller. And Emma, let's start with you, shall we? And in the Sunday Times, focusing on Camilla on page 3. And apparently she was totally herself yesterday.
Yeah, I think this is a lovely piece because there's been so much focus on Charles, but we do have a new queen as well. And although she is in most of the photos, lots of the photos are just the new king. So I think it's nice to also look at Camilla, who's been by Charles's side for decades now. And the piece in the Sunday Times is a lovely piece, all about 50 years ago. In 1973, Camilla wrote to Prince Charles and she said, you know, I'm going to marry Andrew Parker Bowles. And she broke Charles's heart. And it just takes us back to, you know, like any good love story, how up and down it's been for them, how difficult it's been. Let's remember back in the, was it the 90s? How sort of hated Camilla was, all the kind of upheavals around the breakdown of Charles's relationship with Diana and Camilla's possible role in that. She really was vilified by the press. But this is a piece in the Sunday Times just talking about kind of what a sort of how steadfast she's been at Charles's side, and how probably throughout the ceremony she was wryly amused and waiting for a relaxing cigarette. And there's something very real about Camilla. There's something, you know, even at her crowning, she was sort of. She was. I don't think she suffers fools gladly, and I think even at the crowning, she was sort of pushing her hair away and adjusting it the way she wanted it to be. I think we should celebrate the fact that we have someone a little bit more.
It was in her eyes.
A little, yeah, exactly. I know, and women know that thing when someone you do need to push the hair out of the way. It's not nice, but I think there's something to be celebrated in Camilla as well.
I do think there was a sense in the golden coach, the golden carriage, when they were waiting a long time, and she looked slightly irked at one point, and you sort of think, probably desperate for a fag.
I think she was.
I think for a
Stephen, I think you and I both know that feeling as ex-smokers. I think she was. I think she was probably desperate for a ciggy, and I think also Charles and Camilla didn't really want an hours and hours and hours long ceremony, and you could see the relief. You know, they're in their 70s. They've probably been rehearsing for this. Think about the fact that Charles's mother, the Queen, died in September. It's been 6 months of more than 6 months, a lot of preparation, a lot of stress and exhaustion, really. You know, how many ceremonies they've had to have, how many heads of state have had to visit, and all of that. And so I think, you know, we get a nice human side to Camilla and Charles as well through this coronation.
Yeah, yeah. Nice to see. Can we have a look at the Sunday Telegraph? And totally away from all of this, Alan, but looking at the concerns over artificial intelligence.
Ah, yes. So here we have a professor, Geoffrey Hinton, who's saying that he's got grave concerns and actually that AI could be more of a threat, more urgent than climate change. It's very alarmist, and we know that there was a big event in March where 100 people signed a sort of declaration saying that they've got concerns about AI and machine learning, that it could take over from what humans do in this kind of Frankenstein dystopian view. There's also a very interesting article in the Sunday Times today as well, saying 6 reasons why we should not be overly fearful about AI, which makes the point that humans are the ones that can steer things. I think it's really interesting that we've become so petrified of ourselves and our ability to shape things that we can sometimes think that things could just spiral out of control. And the idea that we can manage things, that we can have oversight, that we can curate and we can shape reflects a deep concern and disdain with us. Obviously, AI at the moment, the point it makes as well in the Sunday Times comparing to the Telegraph piece, is that there are some things that can be done, binary decisions, quick processing, very fast, ChatGPT. But the idea of some other things like self-driving cars everywhere all the time on the roads and all these other things are being declared quite often, but are quite some distance down the road. And much of it depends how we decide to curate things. So there are concerns, like there's concerns with deep fake context of things that are put on television and the way technology is developing. But a lot of it seems to me, depends on what we actually do about those things. And we should be aware of, on the one hand, similarly, his analogy of climate change, that too is not something that's just irrefutable. It's about what we do in the world, how we innovate, how we deal with growth, questions about how we can curate things that are under our control, not just things that happen to us as though we're vulnerable and at risk and children, that things just happen to us. So it's an interesting debate. It will rain on and throws up many questions for us to think about.
But the problem is, even just a few months ago...
It will.
Sorry, just a few months ago, people like Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, who are the heads, you know, these great big tech entrepreneurs, were saying that AI was sort of beyond control and was beyond human control. So I do think we need to be super, super aware, and we're not that far away. We have had self-driving cars and things have gone wrong. So I think we should put it all back in the box, ban all phones and technology and start all over again, frankly.
Well, if we're going to be on the banning...
Yes, that might be a little bit difficult. We need to leave it there, you two. Yeah. We're out of time, but really good to see you both. Thanks very much indeed.
And we'll see you in the next hour. Thank you so much, Emma and Alan. Lots of you getting in touch about your highlights, your wow moments from yesterday. Fran says everything about the coronation was magic, but seeing the little Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis singing God Save the King will be a memory forever. And they did know all of the words.
Good.
They're obviously learning that one at home. Jeff says one of the wow moments from yesterday was the greeting from the young choir boy to the King. Such confidence from a young lad. And Scott said it was an emotional day, and my beautiful husband Mark even baked the coronation quiche.
The coronation quiche.
The corniche.
Or corniche, as it's known from here on in.
The corniche.
The corniche.
The corniche, and he said it was brilliant.
Now, one of the standout moments for you, of course, may have been the fly past. It was a little bit
Touch and go.
Well, it was touch and go, and it was cut back a lot, but nevertheless, the wet weather, of course, didn't disrupt what was going on here because people just got on with it, but it did cause one or two problems in the air, no doubt about it.
Yes, more than 60 aircraft were expected for the balcony flight past, but only a handful actually made it. Our reporter Will Hollis has the full story.
Weeks of rehearsals and hours in the cockpit, all leading to just a few moments above Buckingham Palace. The flypast is a firm favourite in royal occasion, and in the days before the coronation, those flying for the King know the value of their role in the ceremony. Crew Captain Billy Cooper is Station Commander here at RAF Coningsby.
We see a lot of these events, don't we, be they parades and or flypasts, but nobody ever tires of these things. We know from experience that everybody really enjoys the aircraft coming down the Mall, everybody loves to see the Typhoons, everybody loves to see the Red Arrows, and it's a real sense of togetherness, I think, and pride in our nation.
When the day of the coronation arrives, an army of aircraft enthusiasts parachute in from across the country, itching to see some action.
Well, it's a special day, but I don't usually fly on a Saturday.
I'm just here to see the aircraft take off, ready for the coronation.
We come down quite often, but it's nice to see so many people here as well.
I just want to get as much of it on film for future generations.
With 60 plus planes and choppers, including the iconic Spitfire and Lancaster bomber listed to fly, the schedule is packed. But it comes with one unwelcome addition: the rain. And as it begins to pour, doubt the flypast will go ahead washes in.
Well, unfortunately, it's rather atrocious here, but what's it like in London anyway?
It's very, very wet, and yeah, I think it's not going to happen.
There's a bit of bright sky on the way, so we're kind of keeping an eye on that.
I can't feel it under this umbrella, anyway.
And then comes the sound of engines, followed by movement as jets head for the runway. One after the other, Typhoons launch into the sky, 22 in total, heading toward London. In the capital, though, the weather gets worse. As the King and Queen emerge on the balcony, the flypast is scaled back for safety, abandoning the Battle of Britain memorial flight. Still, cheers from the crowd as helicopters cross the sky, until the roar of the Red Arrows streak red, white and blue above the city. Signalling the end with fewer planes than planned, the Joy on the ground glides only higher. Will Hollis, GB News.
Fabulous to see as well. We've got much more coverage coming up for you very, very shortly. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from the Palace.
Hello there, good morning. I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest weather for GB News. Looking at the forecast for Sunday, plenty of sunny spells to come, the risk of a few heavy showers and feeling quite warm as well. The reason for this is this weak ridge of high pressure just about holding on for Sunday to give settled weather. However, more Atlantic weather systems move in for Bank Holiday Monday, bringing wet and windy weather. Bit of a west-east split first thing Sunday morning. Best of the sunshine across western areas. The east quite grey and damp in places, some mist along the coast. But it should brighten up here through the morning and into the afternoon. But we will see some sharp showers developing. But for the vast majority of us, having a dry day, plenty of sunny spells. And feeling quite warm. Temperatures in the high teens to low 20s for many of us. Still a bit chilly though along some eastern coasts of Scotland where the wind just comes off the North Sea and it stays quite cloudy here. Into the evening time, a fine end to the day for many. However, thicker cloud will bring some outbreaks of rain across parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. And the rain spreads a little further eastwards as we move into the early hours. The best of the dry weather holding on across the far east. And the wind starting to pick up too. No problems for temperatures, holding up in double figures to start Monday morning. Bit of early morning sunshine across the far east, some low cloud across the east coast though, but the wet and windy weather across the west will slowly move its way north and eastwards, affecting many of us. The rain could be heavy at times, perhaps just a few glimmers of sunshine and the driest weather holding on across northern Scotland, also the far southeast of England. Behind it, heavy showers following as well. Temperatures lower compared to Sunday, but still reaching the high teens in any sunnier breaks, and it stays unsettled through the next few days too. We'll see rain or showers across the country and temperatures generally around average, perhaps a little above where we see the best of the sunshine. See you soon.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Morning, it's 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 7th of May. Today, well, it was history in the making. King Charles has been crowned at Westminster Abbey, marking the symbolic beginning of a new royal era for Britain. After the ceremony comes the party, though. This evening's star-studded coronation concert at Windsor Castle, promising to be something rather special.
I'm in Windsor, where tonight 20,000 people will be attending the coronation concert, along with the King and Queen and other members of the royal family. So we'll be catching up with people here ahead of the celebrations tonight.
Good morning from Lutterworth in Leicestershire. We're here ahead of the big lunch where loads of people are going to be coming down to celebrate the King and Queen in their own way. The road is closed and the bunting is up, and hopefully it's not going to rain.
And the Metropolitan Police has received further backlash after arresting 50 anti-monarchist protesters. The Human Rights Watch called the arrests incredibly alarming, though Scotland Yard said it acted in a proportionate manner.
A very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
You're getting in touch this morning, and it's lovely to share your thoughts and memories, actually. Really appreciate it. Another Barry who says, yes, we are everywhere. What about, your favourite moments, what about Princess Anne on horseback and not in the carriage? Brilliant! Barry's watching from France. Yeah, I think Princess Anne is a remarkable lady.
Absolutely, and probably one of the most respected royals.
Yeah.
Looked absolutely fantastic yesterday on that horse, and what horsemanship as well from her. Brilliant. Ollie in Lincolnshire says, spare a thought for the musicians. One was spotted yesterday emptying rainwater from his tuba. Well done to them.
Yeah. Ray's in Cyprus, morning Ray, says the British here are having a street party all day to celebrate our King and Queen.
Oh, that's lovely. Dawn in Leicester's been in touch and says, my favourite moment was when the princesses Charlotte and Kate had a beautiful moment smiling at each other during the service. And that really, I think that was one of my standout moments as well. Really beautiful smile between mum and daughter. And obviously in the same tiara, the same floral crown.
Yeah, that was very
matching.
nice.
It was like little and large. It was lovely.
It was nice. And Amy in Fife, hi Amy, said we had a community afternoon tea yesterday at the Baptist Church in Cowdenbeath. It's our 150th year, so we're making new memories as well. I mean, again, lovely. It's all about community. And Charles and Camilla have made it very clear that they wanted this to be a celebratory weekend for everybody. So I'm glad you're doing that. And I think it's nice that we're all sort of feeling included in it, really.
Yeah, and one more from Mike in Bath, who says, the memorable moment for me were the soldiers coming through the turnstiles at Waterloo Station yesterday morning with their instruments, even one soldier having to carry his big drum in front of him. And they did look fantastic, didn't they? Absolutely pristine. They did us all proud yesterday. I think that was the highlight for many people.
They certainly did. Well, of course, King Charles crowned yesterday after making that promise to pledge his life to his country in what was, a real piece of history for us in that ceremony watched by millions of people.
Yeah, millions all around the world. And the celebrations continue across the country today. But first, let's have a recap on what happened yesterday with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
History in the making. A newly crowned king and queen greeted their subjects who, despite the rain, erupted in cheers and applause. The stage was set inside Westminster Abbey for a ceremony dating back to 1066, full of traditions with a modern twist. A VIP guest list of world leaders and foreign crowned princes were for the first time joined by community heroes who make a difference to people's lives. An opportunity for them to mingle with TV royalty as well as the real deal. Prince Harry, no robes or special uniforms, proudly displayed his military medals. No longer a working royal, he flew alone to attend his father's coronation. A fleeting visit, no time for small talk with his brother, instead flying back to California to attend his son's birthday celebrations.
Alleluia! Christ is risen.
Led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the ceremony was full of tradition, religion, and service was at its heart.
Whether they be thrones or dominions.
Rishi Sunak, a practicing Hindu, gave a reading from the Bible as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Will you solemnly promise and swear?
His Majesty was presented to the people and swore an oath to them.
I solemnly promise so to do.
The most holy part of the service, the King donned a simple white shirt. This was a moment between him and God. Screens shielded him as the Archbishop of Canterbury anointed King Charles with holy oil. Perhaps the climax of the service, the moment the monarch received the royal regalia. The spurs, the sword of state, the super tunica, the orb, the sovereign's ring, a glove worn by his grandfather for his coronation, the sovereign's sceptre with cross, the rod of equity and mercy, and St. Edward's crown.
Pledge my loyalty to you.
The Prince of Wales, heir to the throne, pledged his allegiance to the king with a kiss on his father's cheek. King Charles's consort, who's been by his side for decades, was crowned and anointed as Britain's Queen. Their Majesties retired to St Edward's Chapel. King Charles and Queen Camilla wore robes of estate to leave the Abbey. The coronation procession saw the largest number of military personnel since Winston Churchill's funeral march through central London. A small group of anti-monarchy protesters jeered in Trafalgar Square, but were mostly drowned out by royal fans. In the procession to Buckingham Palace, the Prince and Princess of Wales, along with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, waved at onlookers from the Australian state coach. The royal family, pages and ladies in attendance smiled and waved for the jubilant crowds. A scaled-back flypast roared over central London. Today, coronation celebrations continue across the country. The third Carolean era has well and truly begun. Cameron Walker, GB News.
That just makes me smile. That just
too.
makes me smile. Anyway, earlier we spoke to former butler Grant Harold, who served King Charles when he was Prince of Wales. We asked him about the close relationship between Charles and William.
Always been very close. As you know, I worked for the family for several years, and all three of them, or four of them I should say, were close with each other. And like you, I found it quite significant when I saw him with his father. Obviously, you know, very different. You know, obviously when I was there, this is somebody that was in his 20s. He's now 40. Prince of Wales, pledging allegiance to his king. So it was quite significant, and also slightly moving as well at the same time.
And now royal historian Dr. David Starkey joins us with his insight. And David Starkey, you've been very, very busy, haven't you? You've given the commentary yesterday, working very, very hard, doing a fabulous job. I actually rushed home from Green Park here to listen to your commentary, and what a wonderful job you did. What did you make of it all, watching it so very closely?
Somebody told me very loudly this is a modern service for a modern monarchy. How modern do you think 5 pounds of gold shoved on your head by a robed archbishop, the sight of a king in full, that extraordinary train, the shimmering of the gold with an orb in one hand, a sceptre in the other, two bishops supporting either hand, walking the whole length of the nave of Westminster Abbey? I thought it was like something out of a medieval illumination. Several things struck me. Was, of course, the magnificence of the music, with Papano conducting. It was rather like being at the opera. Remember, a coronation is a theatre. The place where it's actually what takes place is called the theatre. Like a great dramatic performance, all the senses were satisfied. You got this incredible visual effect. You got the sound. There was extraordinary sound, and also that even I could tell here, with not very brilliant sound, the organ makes that whole building pulse. Again, here with the drum marching, the extraordinary rhythms, they go through you. It's again as though it's a kind of an earthquake tremor, isn't it? When you're at an event like that, you feel that it's not, or watching it or commentating on it intensely, you don't quite feel that it's a normal experience. It is something so extraordinary, fantastic.
Profound, almost, isn't it?
Well, that's the intention, and I think it works at almost a subconscious level. I mean, I was analysing it intellectually. Again, there were very remarkable new features about the service, which were very carefully concealed in old language. I know I've always got to be naughty, so I'll be a little bit naughty. The text of the service was a kind of liturgical poundry. You remember Prince Charles's fantasy village. Prince Charles, he then was his fantasy village in Dorset, in historic architecture. Because what they did, they turned. We've got the St Edward crown, the King's crown in front of the St Edward shrine, but his mother became the dominant element of the service. Words from her were used as though she was a kind of saint. It was a new royal saint. That opening, you were talking about, the little boy, which so many people spotted, effectively saying to the king, "Oi, mate, what are you here for?" And then that extraordinary answer, "I come here not to be served, but to serve," pretty much a direct quote from the late Queen's pledge to the empire. Dare we say it? It was called the Empire when she was 21. Her pledge to serve when she was a 21-year-old girl, long before she became Queen. And again, the very formal pledge which you have to take by Act of Parliament to maintain the Protestant religion in England as endorsed by law was then framed by words from the Queen, incorporated into the liturgy of the service, saying the Church of England exists not to enforce a uniformity of faith, but to provide a kind of umbrella, a friendly environment for all. It's extraordinary.
But is that a good thing then, in your opinion, that there was that? I mean, it brings forward the Queen's legacy somewhat, doesn't it? It helps mould the two together.
I mean, what was extraordinary, bearing in mind all the stories of tensions between Charles and his parents, was just how complete the tributes were. Because it wasn't just using as I said, it is truly extraordinary. It was literally her words were woven into actual words. And if you were using the annotated text, which the Archbishop did, it was cited the actual day she'd said, a bit like the Gospel, Matthew 2:1, Elizabeth whatever, a new kind of Gospel. But also, of course, a very, very clear homage to his father. With his father's Greek Orthodox background, his Greek background, in two very important ways. One is the actual oil of anointing from the Holy Land and with patriarch and whatever, and the other, the singing of Psalm 71 in Greek. In that magnificent, wonderful deep rumble that they contrived to do. So was Charles laying ghosts? Because again, the Queen herself, when she came to the throne, she does it in sort of two slices. In her accession, this is the late Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, she does it in two slices. At her accession council, she says she will reign as her father did. At her first Christmas broadcast, she said, "I'll do it as my father and grandfather did." So, but at the same time, she did it her own way as well. And Charles is, as you said, is taking the process forward with an echo backwards.
And that was so beautifully captured. And on that theme, what did you make? I know for many people it was a very emotional moment in the ceremony when the Prince of Wales knelt before his father. He pledged his allegiance and then gave his father a kiss on the cheek.
I confess, hardened cynic that I am, that a slight tear came to my own eye. Well, you saw the King, he was on the point of actually crying. That was a remarkable moment. Of course, me being me, I had a niggle, because what you see is a monarchy that's actually shrunken to such a narrow line. All this talk of an extended royal family, and also the elimination of I'm old enough to remember the last coronation very clearly. I was 8. The elimination of almost all the nobility meant that in 53 the monarchy sat at the apex of the costume-wearing classes. That all the nobles were dressed in very much the same style as the monarch. They all put coronets on when the monarch put a coronet on. Now the monarch and his immediate family stand on this pinnacle, absolutely separate. And then there's us.
Yeah.
And I find that, on the one hand, moving, but potentially very dangerous, because again, one of the extraordinary things about that coronation, we haven't really mentioned this as much as we should, it's the smallest congregation since the Middle Ages.
Since the Middle Ages?
Since the Middle Ages. Certainly from the 17th century, they fitted these huge galleries in, and from 1689 onwards, all peers and all members of Parliament were present, as far as I know, at every coronation. Only a handful were this time, which, raises very fundamental questions. We are a parliamentary monarchy, where I say we're a royal republic. You wouldn't have known it yesterday. It looked, in that sense, it was supposed to be modern. In one sense, it was much more like the great medieval coronations, in that it was the king and the church, because the only other person who pledged allegiance to the king was the Archbishop of Canterbury, with the similar touching of the crown and the cheek. So I found it very immensely moving, as I said, that literal tremor which I was talking about, but at the same time raising some very important questions about how it will all develop in the future.
David, fascinating. Well, no, we're going to talk to you a little bit later on. For now, thanks very much indeed.
Well, let's speak now to Lindsay Agnew, who was invited to the coronation yesterday. Good morning to you, Lindsay. Really, really good to have you with us on the programme. What was yesterday like for you?
I mean, it was so beautiful to be invited. And I think, as was just said, knowing that there was so many less people than what normally would have been there made it all the more special.
Did it feel like a profound moment for you? I mean, the religious aspect of that, and the fact you were seeing history in the making.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I wasn't born when our late Queen was introduced as the monarch, so I'd never seen anything like that before. And so to actually not only be able to watch the service but be in the Abbey at the time, just that sense of excitement and awe was really tangible. And just seeing everyone take their part and all the different faith leaders being included, and just every part of it, even the songs that were obviously sung in Latin that were so beautiful, but the words were in English in the book that we all got given, so you were really able to read along and understand for us normal people.
And David Starkey was just talking about it being a delight for the senses. So Lindsay, give us a sense of what it was like in the room in Westminster Abbey. What were the sounds like? Did that music go through you like a tremor, I think you described it as, David? And what could you see from where you were sat?
So I was able to sit at a place where, when they all were entering, I was able to see them really clearly, and get a good view. The music, when they were actually playing the music beforehand, I at first thought it was just music being piped in, because every note was perfect. And then I realised that's actually a choir and an orchestra, because where we were, further towards the entrance, you couldn't actually see them until it came up on the screens. And when I realised that it was live, I thought, wow, I've never heard live music so eloquently and beautifully, just pitch perfectly played and sung.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be something that it'll stay with you forever, won't it?
Yeah, and I think, as with our charity work, we've been very fortunate where obviously I was invited for getting my BEM for part of our charity work, and we'd also received a Queen's Award for voluntary service and had a visit from one of the royal family members a few years back. And so I think for us, having actually had that interaction with them, you can see how much community and charity is at the heart of everything that they do. And having met one of the royals previously on a site visit to our community centre, to actually see how genuine they were in their interest of what we do, and just how personable and easy to talk to. It's like they knew about us personally. They chatted so freely with all of our team, and then seeing them make that such a big part of the coronation yesterday and inviting all those people from different charity and community groups really shows their heart for our country.
Yeah,
Aw.
no, I agree entirely. Look, really good to see you this morning. I'm glad you had a wonderful time yesterday. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Lindsay, and so well deserved as well. So
yeah.
glad she got a seat in the Abbey. That's really wonderful, and that sense of charity and community being at the heart of what the royal family does and what they stand by. That was clear to see yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. Look, we're going to talk lots more about this, but let's just run you through what else is making the headlines this morning at 8:22. And the Metropolitan Police has been criticised for arresting 52 people yesterday for an array of offences, including conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. Graham Smith, who's the chief executive of the anti-monarchy group Republic, was held for nearly 16 hours. He says there is no longer a right to peaceful protest in the UK.
At least 8 people have been killed and 7 wounded after a man opened fire at a mall in Dallas, Texas. The gunman, who authorities think acted alone, was killed by a police officer. 3 of the victims are now in a critical condition.
And reports of a suspicious object in Omer last night led to a police station and surrounding homes being evacuated. The police service of Northern Ireland cordoned off the Derry Road area and asked members of the public to avoid it. So many of you getting in touch about your highlights. Carol said my highlight was seeing the red arrows. Heart-wrenching. There's something about the red arrows, I don't know what it is. It's just magnificent every time. Andy, who's in the Scottish Borders, says the choir singing the 2 Vivat welcomes Regina Camilla and Rex Carolus as they entered the Abbey Coronation Theatre is my main moment to remember amongst many.
Oh, and Sue says the stand-up moment for her was 3 cheers for the King from our armed forces. I know that moved so many of you. Keep those thoughts coming in. What was the standout moment for you yesterday? What moved you? Because it was a very emotional experience for many, many people. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Well, following that magnificent ceremony yesterday at Westminster Abbey, and of course what happened here at Buckingham Palace, more celebrations are on the way right across the country.
Yes, still lots more to come, and many communities will host their own street parties today as part of the Coronation Big Lunch, and the Coronation Concert is going to be held in Windsor Castle at 8 p.m. tonight.
Yes, well, let's head over to Lutterworth and our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis. Morning, Will. Are they prepping for a big coronation lunch?
Good morning. Yes, let's just give you a flavour of what's going on in Lutterworth here today. This is from one end of the high street. All the way down there's going to be rows and rows of tables. And then if you just bring it all the way over to this side, as we go around this bend, as far as you can see, that's where it's going to end. So there's going to be about 400 or 500 or so people. The sleepy little town is starting to wake up a little bit here in Lutterworth in South Leicestershire, and that's because they're really in the mood to have a street party. There are 2 reasons why this is happening today. Of course, we do love a good street party here in Britain, but the second is because it's for the big lunch. This is the Coronation Big Lunch, and Queen Camilla, the newly crowned Queen Camilla, is the patron of the charity, the Big Lunch. So that's why we're doing this in this way. You can see that loads of people are starting to pull up. A lot of people have got suitcases. There's a guy carrying a massive table and a bit of tarpaulin over there. Lots of people are also wearing high-vis jackets. But there's one thing that you need at a street party if you're going to have a street party, and that's, of course, a bar. And Andy is in charge of the bar today. Andy, you've been setting up this bar. I've been watching you work away for the last few moments, getting your Union Jack stuff up. First of all, yesterday, were you watching the coronation?
Yes.
What did you think to it?
Absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Was there a highlight, something that stuck out to you?
Not really. I mean, the procession was phenomenal. Just watching everybody and how precise it was. Brilliant. Really good day.
The big thing for you is making sure that everybody is nicely lubricated, we'll call it, when they're having their street party. I know that you're a little bit of an expert, so you're probably the right person to ask. What do you think King Charles and Queen Camilla are celebrating with today, if they haven't already been celebrating since the coronation yesterday?
Probably a gin and tonic, I would imagine. It's a predominantly British drink, isn't it? So I would guess gin and tonic.
And just a regular tonic, or something like an elderflower, something with a bit of spice?
I think maybe. I'd go with straight tonic though. That's my preference. So.
I know you've got a big job, so I'll leave you to it. There's still lots of things being set up here in Lutterworth. Let's have a little bit of a look around. I think people have been getting ready for the PA system so that you can get the music. There's a whole heap of people over here putting up a tent. Let's see if we can grab somebody as well putting up this tent. Let's just go over here for a moment. Let's see what we can see. This is a really nice little sleepy town, and this is the picture that is going to be everywhere across Britain today. Ellie and Stephen. Excuse me, guys, we're setting up the tarpaulin. What's going to be under here for the street party today?
Face painting.
Face painting. Let's talk to this lady over here. She knows face painting. Let's just hide under here. This is a real work in progress setting up this street. But we're setting up the face painting. What's going to be the face painting of choice for most people, kids and adults?
Oh, I think probably Union Jack unicorn was very popular yesterday. Everything's Union Jack themed on the board. So we've got a tiger, a unicorn, football design, butterfly, all in red, white and blue.
I think it's going to be the same picture across the country. Good luck, get going. Guys, this is going to be a big story wherever you go, and we won't be going anywhere today, Stephen and I.
Oh, Will, you
Fabulous.
superstar. That is what you call in the industry a walk and talk, and what a fabulous job you did getting a sense of everything happening on the ground.
Get your face painted now.
Yeah, unicorn, Union Jack. Look good on you, Will.
There you go. Fabulous. I'm in trouble now from one of the... we've been talking about all the soldiers, all the armed forces. I shouldn't say soldiers. All the armed forces who took part yesterday. Tom Brown, I'm sure you'll get to see this at some point, who's in the Household Cavalry, and I'm pretty sure Tom's a lifeguard rather than a blues and roll. I think you're a lifeguard, Tom. Who yesterday, as they were all lining up here, and apparently he waved and yelled hello at me, and he said, I don't think he recognised me, but you had all your gear in, all your gear on.
True.
So what would I? There you go. I wouldn't.
You can be forgiven.
You, but Tom, well done yesterday, and to all you lads and lasses, incredible work.
Yeah, you did us all proud. And stay with us, still to come. We're going to be discussing the Liverpool fans and their reaction to the national anthem at yesterday's Premier League match. That's up next. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:33. Good morning to you. You're watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and Ellie, and we are live from Buckingham Palace. And I don't know whether you can see this behind us, actually. This was a huge... What do we call it? The Royal Standard yesterday, this flag that's flying just above Buckingham Palace.
The state flag.
State flag. And now it's been changed. It's been swapped around overnight to a massive Union Jack. So just thought we'd let you know that. It looks magnificent flying over Buckingham Palace this morning.
I love it when you send us messages saying, oh, you won't read this one out, because it means I inevitably will. Brenda Howard, hi Brenda, says, my favourite bit of the day was seeing Prince Harry looking happy and laughing with his cousins and chatting to his aunt, Princess Anne. Don't expect you'll mention this, though. Well, yeah, I mean, and, you know, and that's... I don't want Harry to be miserable. No. I really don't want Harry. I want Harry to be happy, despite all the issues that are going on. So, no, I think that is a nice moment, and it's worth mentioning. So, Brenda, good on you.
Yep, stand-out moments, keep them coming in. What was the thing yesterday that stood out for you? GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Yeah, some not very nice things stood out in some places, though. Let's talk to Aidan McGee, who's back in the studio for us this morning. Aidan, I've got to say, I felt very, very disappointed at the crowd's reaction yesterday at Liverpool.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Yeah, it was slightly unedifying, wasn't it? But also quite predictable. Liverpool have a history of, well, their supporters do. And I should say not all the supporters, by the way, have a history of kind of acting in defiance when it comes to matters relating to the establishment and what they see as, well, the monarchy, actually. But I don't think it was about the individuals involved. I think it was a general kind of show of defiance against what, as I say, what they see as the establishment. There was a bit of booing in the crowd when the anthem was played. I can't help thinking, though, Stephen, that part of this problem was actually caused by the Premier League. They effectively issued an edict in the last couple of weeks saying that every team, during every game throughout the country in the Premier League yesterday and today and tomorrow, would play the national anthem before the game. It can be quite divisive. When we talk about sport bringing politics into its own realm, that's the difficulty, because this is kind of what they're doing right now. Yes, OK, we might take a different view over the actual politics involved, but even so, it is divisive. It is something that has caused problems at Liverpool specifically before, and at Celtic up if we're looking north of the border. So it's another example of if you bring politics into sport, it can be quite difficult. But having said that, you know, we knew it was going to happen. There were other ways that the clubs could have marked the coronation, and I think Liverpool maybe should have chose something else, but it's done now anyway.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the Premier League, shall we, and talk about Mo Salah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, staying on Liverpool, of course. Yeah, they've gone within a point of Manchester United in the Champions League race. They beat Brentford 1-0 at Anfield. Quite pleased with yourself, though, aren't you, Ellie? So they've moved up towards United. But they've got two games in. United have got 2 games in hand over Liverpool. Mo Salah scoring the goal yesterday, as we saw, and elsewhere in the Premier League as well. Manchester City against Leeds saw the return of our good friend Sam Allardyce to the Premier League, taking charge of Leeds. They conceded 18 goals in the previous 5 games. They didn't win yesterday there, but they did only lose 2-1, and they're in the game right until the end. So that'll be an improvement for him. And a big job for him to do there, Stephen. 3 games to go. He's got his work cut out. They're above the bottom 3 on goal difference, so a lot to do before the end of the game. They've also played a game more than most of the other teams around them in the league, particularly in the bottom 3. Nottingham Forest play tomorrow. Chelsea finally got off the mark under Frank Lampard yesterday. They won 3-1 down at Bournemouth. Now, this is interesting because they hadn't won. This is astonishing. This is Chelsea we're talking about. They hadn't won since March the 11th when they won away at Leicester City, and he couldn't buy a win. In fact, the last 5 games have been defeats, including an exit in the Champions League as well. But they went down there, went a goal ahead through Conor Gallagher and ran out 3-1 winners. And that puts them on 42 points. The Chelsea fans, rather ironically, humorously, were singing in the away end, "We are staying up." So you can tell them where their mindset is right now.
Let's talk Grand Prix, should we?
Yeah, why not? Miami is... it's kind of overtaken Monte Carlo, Monaco, as the most glitzy and glamorous events on the F1 calendar, but it was kind of same old story for Lewis Hamilton, unfortunately. If we look at it from a British perspective, he qualified way down in 13th. He said that there are major upgrades needed for his car. We've heard this a lot, haven't we? We've heard a great champion constantly moaning about his car week in, week out, or month in, month out throughout the season. Don't get me wrong, his concerns are absolutely genuine, and they're confident they can make changes going through to the rest of the season to see if they can make inroads into the top half of the grid. However, the issue here, though, is that he's almost like a broken record, isn't he? And he's also made the point that unless someone like him and others can try and challenge the very top of the leaderboard, it's going to get quite boring for a TV audience. And at a time when, you know, other sports are making inroads, particularly in America, in NFL, where F1 wants to be stronger, there's more competition at the top of those sports than there is at F1. And he said it's getting a bit boring. He's getting towards the end of his career now. I mean, he's got plenty of driving left in him, but when you consider that George Russell's only 25, 12 years younger than him, he's running out of time, and that's probably the source of much of his frustration. But yeah, I think they want to get the upgrades done to the car, and that has to happen sooner rather than later.
OK. Aidan, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
You too, guys.
Indeed.
Thanks, Aidan.
See you in the flesh. See you in the flesh very soon.
OK, stay with us. We're going to be discussing Prince Harry's swift arrival and swift departure, actually, as he returned to Los Angeles following the King's coronation. We'll be going through today's papers with Emma Wolf and Alan Miller. That's next. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:43. Good morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie, live from the Palace this morning. Let's go through the papers for you with writer and journalist Emma Wolfe and co-founder of Together, Alan Miller. Good to see you both this morning. Emma, let's start with you. We've just had Brenda messages saying one of her key moments was seeing Prince Harry laughing and smiling with his cousins and with Princess Anne. But the Sunday Times this morning saying the Prince looked tired and miserable, and the elegant opinion might have been to stay away. I'm sort of glad he didn't stay away from the coronation.
Yeah, I mean, some people say that they saw him smiling and laughing, but I think a lot of people saw quite a lonely figure, quite a solitary figure, who didn't really have a place. He certainly didn't have a place amongst his family, and was seated, you know, some distance back behind Prince Anne's now iconic feathered hat. Yeah, this is a piece in the Sunday Times from Camilla Long, who is both funny and sad. I mean, she's pretty acerbic anyway, but she's saying that the elegant option would have been to stay away, that actually, she says a line that really stood out for me was, what a mess of hurt, stupidity, ego and silliness. And I think there is a sense, actually, of sadness about all this. You know, as far as we know, Prince Harry didn't talk or see his father or his brother. And I think, you know, as much as we have had a kind of royal circus around Prince Harry and Meghan and were they coming and were they not, actually that's a really sad situation, that perhaps he didn't even exchange words with William and with Charles on that day. Yes, he did attend, but it seems that he was in the UK for around 24 hours. He certainly left straight after the ceremony. He went straight out to a waiting car and went back to the airport to go back for his 4-year-old son's birthday. So I don't know how he'll feel about the fact that he did attend, whether that was a good idea. Camilla Long's view in the Sunday Times is that it would have been better not to come because he just looked so isolated. But then again, we have to remember, it was his choice to leave the country, and it was his choice, crucially, to publish Spare in January, which was an extremely, you know, offensive and unkind, and we can use all sorts of words about this, but it was an extremely offensive memoir talking about King Charles's wife, Camilla, and all of that. So I think Harry has made his bed, and now we see him lying in it.
Well, I think that's fair enough in a lot of ways, but I think he would have been criticised whatever he did. That's part of the problem. Mind you, sticking with the Camilla theme, Alan, this is in the Sunday Mirror, looking back at her I mean, we could say checkered history, I guess, because she was deeply unpopular and she has now become, obviously, the Queen of the United Kingdom.
Indeed. I think the thing is, it speaks to a lot of things. It speaks to the fact that, on the one hand, unlike Harry, I think many would respect the Queen Camilla now, is what she is, for her stoicism, a sense of getting on with duty and with being quiet about privacy and private matters, on the one hand. It's also interesting because Andrew Morton's written this piece about looking at the changing mores of Britain, of how divorce was not even allowed with the Church of England, how things were seen very differently, and what our web of meaning, what the things that we all agree with are now. And I think that question about hearts for everyone is important. I think the other thing that we all should think about and reflect on is that, is it just that it's a regal, ceremonial thing that is tradition and brings money, or is it also political? Because there is still a royal prerogative. And some people are concerned about that question, the idea that the House of Commons and Lords can be overruled. And it might be, for instance, that the new king says, well, actually, I think that something's really important, like the climate or whatever, and you guys, like Tony Blair and Keir Starmer have said about Westminster, is a bit of a pesky, messy business. So that is a question for everyone still, but I do think on reflection, Camilla has demonstrated quite a robust sense of duty, unlike some of the younger generations, which have been a kind of tell-all situation, much more wear your heart on your sleeves, and it shows that distinction between the two.
I don't think there's any danger of the royal prerogative being used to override anything. I think that's not going to happen, is it? But as you say, I mean, she does seem to be one for duty, and let's be honest, Charles seems a much happier man, doesn't he? He's got the woman he loves by his side, and that clearly makes a huge difference to him.
Yeah, and I think she puts up with him or manages Charles well. I mean, we know that he's not an easy man. Do you remember that scene a few months back where he was sort of chucking pens around and saying that he wasn't happy with this bloody fountain pen, that kind of thing? We know that Camilla deals with this sort of outbursts.
I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah, it was funny, but I'm just saying.
I quite like that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think she deals with that side of him quite well and has been, you know, by his side through those ups and downs, and is able to cope with that side of our king.
Yeah. Well, look, we've got to leave it there, sadly, because I know it's been really tight for time this morning, but thank you both very much indeed. If you think Charles is hard work, Emma, you should deal with Ellie Costello. She's just stormed off to have she's just stormed off for a croissant and a cup of coffee. I mean, it's terrible. Terrible.
Well, we're keeping her seat warm here.
Thank you both. Well, good. Oh, honestly, she's a madam. She's a madam, but she will come back at some point. She's over there laughing at me. Earlier, we spoke to Will Hollis to find out about the celebrations happening across the East Midlands today. But hundreds of people will be heading to Windsor for the coronation concert. And our reporter, Lisa Hartle, is there for us this morning. It's going to be quite an event, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah, it's already such a lovely atmosphere. I was just chatting to two girls earlier. They work in an ice cream shop just behind me, and they're saying all the staff are in today because they're expecting so many people. We have 20,000 people attending that coronation concert this evening. And there's also people from around the world that couldn't get tickets, but they still wanted to be here just to soak up the atmosphere. And we've got a clip now just from a couple of the people that I was speaking to earlier.
We're from Thailand, It's very nice to be part of this, and we like to see everyone celebrating, of course, for the king, and that he has been waiting for so long. That's a congratulation.
We've spent it with neighbours yesterday, a neighbours party. We live just down the road, so we had a big party with all our neighbours, and today we're going to a fete, so lots of fun things. The atmosphere is always lovely. It's always busy and everyone's happy, and all the shops and restaurants, they all have lots of stuff in the windows, and really lovely.
So although not everyone has tickets to the concert this evening, lots of people are gathering here. That concert the King and Queen will be attending along with other members of the royal family. It's going to be hosted by Hugh Bonneville. We best know him for playing the Earl of Grantham in Downton Abbey. He'll be hosting that. And performances we can expect from Katy Perry, Take That, Lionel Richie and Andrea Bocelli and the Royal Ballet. Some of those were actually at the coronation yesterday, so they're certainly celebrating all weekend. The stage is going to be shaped like a Union Jack flag, all coloured in the red, white and blue and fanning out into the crowd so everyone gets a really good view of everything going on. We're going to have video sketches from the likes of Tom Cruise, Dame Joan Collins, Tom Jones, Bear Grylls, and another special appearance will be from Winnie the Pooh. So we all remember Paddington Bear appearing in the Queen's celebration of the Platinum Jubilee. Well, this year, Winnie the Pooh is going to be appearing throughout this evening, sharing facts about the King. And another highlight of tonight will be the landmarks illuminated. So different points throughout the country will be illuminated in different coloured lights. There'll be choreographed lasers, drone displays and other things like that. So there's certainly a lot to look forward to this evening. But of course today, also as we just heard from the people speaking there in Windsor and across the country, people are going to be attending street parties or just walking around places like Windsor where all the bunting's up, all the shops are decorated for the coronation. So the celebrations continue certainly throughout the day today.
Oh, they certainly do, Lisa, and it looks fantastic behind you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
I'll tell you what, I want to be in Morecambe.
Oh, do you?
Today,
Why?
I do. Phil, hi Phil, says Morecambe Town Council have organised a promenade party today, starting at 1 o'clock with at least 900 tables.
Ooh,
now,
wow.
You see, that's what your town council's for, isn't it? Blooming brilliant.
Yeah, very, very good. Jill and Gary in Wirral say today our road will be the place for a street party at 2 p.m. to celebrate our new king, and also a good excuse to get together. And that it is.
They said Wentworth Drive, which you missed out.
Yeah, I wasn't
deliberately.
sure. I didn't know.
So
I
if
don't
you
want
know
people to descend on them.
Wentworth Drive. Head on, it's going to be a good party. Brian, this means a lot, Brian, actually. I just want to say thank you both, he says, for your enthusiasm and pride in bringing us your take on the coronation. Glad to be British today and always. It is a privilege.
It is.
And it is a pleasure to be able to be patriotic and to share in this moment of history. And we have loved it.
We have loved every moment, and we are proud. We are so proud, and we are so excited. And yesterday we were so excited, weren't we, watching the King and Queen go by. And we are so proud to bring it to you and to bring it to your living room. So thank you for having us on in the living room, or perhaps you're in the car. It's just been wonderful to be with you this whole weekend.
Yeah, Bev, and I'm with you this because I get an old Bev. I like sort of different styles of music. She says, I thought the choral music was wonderful, mixing old with new.
Yes.
Fabulous. Keep all your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News live from Buckingham Palace.
Hello there, good morning. I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest weather for GB News. Looking at the forecast for Sunday, plenty of sunny spells to come, the risk of a few heavy showers and feeling quite warm as well. The reason for this is this weak ridge of high pressure just about holding on for Sunday to give settled weather. However, more Atlantic weather systems move in for bank holiday Monday, bringing wet and windy weather. Bit of a west-east split first thing Sunday morning. Best of the sunshine across western areas. The east quite grey and damp in places. Some mist along the coast. But it should brighten up here through the morning and into the afternoon. But we will see some sharp showers developing. But for the vast majority of us, having a dry day, plenty of sunny spells. And feeling quite warm. Temperatures in the high teens to low 20s for many of us. Still a bit chilly though along some eastern coasts of Scotland where the wind just comes off the North Sea and it stays quite cloudy here. Into the evening time, a fine end to the day for many. However, thicker cloud will bring some outbreaks of rain across parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. And the rain spreads a little further eastwards as we move into the early hours. The best of the dry weather holding on across the far east. And the wind starting to pick up too. No problems for temperatures holding up in double figures to start Monday morning. Bit of early morning sunshine across the far east, some Low cloud across the east coast, though, but the wet and windy weather across the west will slowly move its way north and eastwards, affecting many of us. The rain could be heavy at times, perhaps just a few glimmers of sunshine and the driest weather holding on across northern Scotland, also the far southeast of England. Behind it, heavy showers following as well. Temperatures lower compared to Sunday, but still reaching the high teens in any sunnier breaks. And it stays unsettled through the next few days too. We'll see rain or showers across the country and temperatures generally around average, perhaps a little above where we see the best of the sunshine. See you soon.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock. It's Sunday, the 7th of May. Today, well, it was history in the making. King Charles III crowned at Westminster Abbey, marking the symbolic beginning of a new royal era in Britain. Well, after the ceremony, though, comes the party in this evening's star-studded coronation concert at Windsor Castle, which promises to be something rather special.
I'm in Windsor, where tonight 20,000 people will be attending the coronation concert, along with the King and Queen and other members of the royal family. So we'll be catching up with people here ahead of the celebrations tonight.
And coronation lunches are set to take place across the country.
Good morning from Lutterworth in Leicestershire. We're here ahead of the big lunch where loads of people are going to be coming down to celebrate the King and Queen in their own way. The road is closed and the bunting is up, and hopefully it's not going to rain.
The Metropolitan Police has received further backlash after arresting 50 anti-monarchist protesters. The Human Rights Watch called the arrests incredibly alarming, though Scotland Yard said it acted in a proportionate manner.
Very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
So many of you getting in touch this morning, just
yes.
because you enjoyed what happened yesterday, and I just think it's absolutely marvellous. Sandy, and I love the fact it's international. Sandy says, I was watching the coronation from Cape Town and loved every single moment. I had all my snacks and drinks by my side, so I didn't have to miss a thing.
Oh, great.
It's quite nice.
It's the way to do it.
It is.
Robert says, what a special day yesterday. Why would people want to give up on all that history?
Yeah, exactly so. And Lorraine says, one part of the day that I found particularly amusing was Louis waving from the balcony. Obviously a long day for him, but what a little character.
He is such a character, and I hope he
Very
never
cute.
loses that.
No, he probably won't.
No, I hope not. He's cheeky, he's mischievous. It's wonderful, wonderful to see him.
Was one heck of a day, though, wasn't it, yesterday? Charles being crowned after promising to pledge his life to his country in what was a historic coronation ceremony watched by millions of us.
Yes, and millions all around the world. Well, the celebrations do continue across the country today. But first, let's have a recap on what happened yesterday. Our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, has this report.
History in the making. A newly crowned king and queen greeted their subjects who, despite the rain, erupted in cheers and applause. The stage was set inside Westminster Abbey for a ceremony dating back to 1066, full of traditions with a modern twist. A VIP guest list of world leaders and foreign crowned princes were for the first time joined by community heroes who make a difference to people's lives. An opportunity for them to mingle with TV royalty as well as the real deal. Prince Harry, no robes or special uniforms, proudly displayed his military medals. No longer a working royal, he flew alone to attend his father's coronation. A fleeting visit, no time for small talk with his brother, instead flying back to California to attend his son's birthday celebrations.
Alleluia! Christ is risen.
Led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the ceremony was full of tradition, religion, and service was at its heart.
Whether they be thrones or dominions.
Rishi Sunak, a practicing Hindu, gave a reading from the Bible as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Will you solemnly promise and swear?
His Majesty was presented to the people and swore an oath to them.
I solemnly promise so to do.
The most holy part of the service, the King donned a simple white shirt. This was a moment between him and God. Screens shielded him as the Archbishop of Canterbury anointed King Charles with holy oil. Perhaps the climax of the service, the moment the monarch received the royal regalia. The spurs, the sword of state, the super tunica, the orb, the sovereign's ring, a glove worn by his grandfather for his coronation, the sovereign's sceptre with cross, the rod of equity and mercy, and St. Edward's crown.
pledge my loyalty to you.
The Prince of Wales, heir to the throne, pledged his allegiance to the King with a kiss on his father's cheek. King Charles's consort, who's been by his side for decades, was crowned and anointed as Britain's Queen. Their Majesties retired to St Edward's Chapel. King Charles and Queen Camilla wore robes of estate to leave the Abbey. The coronation procession saw the largest number of military personnel since Winston Churchill's funeral march through central London. A small group of anti-monarchy protesters jeered in Trafalgar Square, but were mostly drowned out by royal fans. In the procession to Buckingham Palace, the Prince and Princess of Wales, along with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, waved at onlookers from the Australian state coach. The royal family, pages and ladies in attendance smiled and waved for the jubilant crowds. A scaled-back flypast roared over central London. Today, coronation celebrations continue across the country. The third Carolean era has well and truly begun. Cameron Walker, GB News.
And Cameron's here now, because where else would he be? Morning.
Good morning.
I tell you what, I thought it was absolutely fantastic yesterday, and it seemed, for us casual observers, to go without a hitch. It's not strictly true, is it?
Well, no, it was me, Nigel Farage and David Starkey sat here, and at around 10 to 11, the carriage turned up containing the King and Queen consorts at Westminster Abbey, a lot earlier than we were expecting. And we were thinking, gosh, we haven't seen the Prince and Princess of Wales yet, or Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. And then you could see the King shuffling in the carriage a little bit, and he pulled a face like he did when his fountain pen leaks following the accession. We clearly think, well, we haven't had this confirmed, but we think he arrived a little bit early, so all the timings are out. So the Prince and Princess of Wales then had to shuffle in behind him, because the issue was that the order of arrivals was the order of precedent, but in reverse order. So we had members of the royal family, then we had working members of the royal family, then we had the Princess Royal and those perhaps slightly higher up, and then we had the King and Queen consorts, and then William and Catherine, who should have travelled before the King and Queen, shuffling in behind them. Oops. But apart from that, I think it went without a hitch.
And you wouldn't know, to be fair. It looked absolutely perfect to us watching at home. The Wales family have been the standout for many of the viewers who've been emailing in this morning. I mean, Catherine in particular looked absolutely magnificent yesterday, didn't she? We have seen a behind-the-scenes video from the Prince and Princess of Wales. I think we can play that for you now. And it looks absolutely fantastic. So, Cameron, what are we seeing here? This has been on their Instagram,
Yes,
isn't it?
so this is the Kensington Palace, just coming out of apartment 1A, which is still their official residence, although, of course, they pretty much live at Adelaide Cottage in Windsor, but we understand that they spent the night at Kensington Palace last night, and clearly this is them coming out with all their regalia on and robes, and of course Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte as well, travelling towards Westminster Abbey. Prince George, we believe, travelled separately because, of course, he was his grandfather's page, one of 4 pages that he had, so he had a special job on the day, and I think all the pages did absolutely outstandingly, so all that rehearsal certainly paid off.
What are we to make, talking of the boys, as it were, of Harry, because there's been, I think it's just happenstance, but there's been a lot of talk about the fact he was on some of the shots sort of behind Princess Anne's feather. I mean, look, it's just the way it fell, I guess.
I think so. I think that was a coincidence, but I think it was slightly amusing to some viewers where Princess Anne's feather on her hat completely obscured Prince Harry's face. Prince Harry was sat 3 rows behind the working members of the royal family. Of course, he no longer is a working member. He was also just wearing a normal morning suit by Dior, as they were very happy to point out on Twitter last night. But he was wearing his military medals. Of course, he served 2 tours of Afghanistan. Some people are making the contrast, actually, between Prince Harry just wearing a simple morning suit and Prince Andrew, who it looks like insisted on wearing his Garter robes. He is a Knight of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, even though he is no longer a working member of the royal family. But Prince Harry it's understood, wore what he was asked to wear.
Yeah,
Kevin,
well, good.
Before we let you go, very quickly, what was your standout moment of yesterday as our royal correspondent?
I think it was the anointing. Zadok the priest playing, it sent shivers down my spine, the screens going around the coronation chair, King Charles donning a simple white shirt, his moments between him and God. I just thought it was exquisite, the most holy part of the service.
Yeah, fabulous. Well said.
Wonderful answer, Cameron. Thank you very much. No, same as
She
you.
loves
You
you.
said it.
She loves you.
Oh.
I love both of you. Don't fight now.
No, it's competition. Well, following that magnificent ceremony yesterday at Westminster Abbey, of course, and of course everything that happened here at the Palace, more celebrations are on the way right across the country today.
Yes, they certainly are. And around the world, many communities will host their own street parties as part of the coronation big lunch, and the coronation concert will be held in Windsor Castle at 8 p.m. tonight.
Well, our Northwest of England reporter Sophie Reaper is at a picnic in Lee Park. Joins us now, and it's people gathering already. I can't quite see behind you, but how big an event is that going to be?
Well, people will start to gather a little bit later on this morning. Setup is just continuing behind me. But today we're going to have people coming in from all over Lee. There's going to be funfair rides. There's going to be food vans. People are being encouraged to bring their own picnic baskets. But there's also lots of stalls with various different things who've all come together to celebrate the King's coronation. Because ultimately, what's more British than a street party? So we'll try and speak to a few people for you now. They're very busy with setup, but let's try and speak to some people. Oh, they've all seemed to have disappeared from behind me. Excuse me, guys, can I just quickly ask you, why are you here today?
Volunteering for Girl Guiding. We're running lots of different activities so that people can get a taste of what the guiding programme's all about.
And how important is it to you to be here today celebrating the King's coronation?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's such a really great experience. There's going to be so many people about as well, and just really uplifting.
And it's really sunny today as well, isn't it? So do you think we're going to be getting a lot of people down here in Lee?
Well, I'm hoping so, and I'm hoping the rain stays off as well.
You've said it now, don't tempt fate. Thank you so much, lovely. So people will start coming down here very soon. I think it begins around 11 a.m. Of course, they won't be alone. In England, there's around 3,000 street parties that are going to be taking place. I know my family in Bolton will be having a street party with their neighbours. It's going to be happening all over the UK as people come together now on this big lunch to celebrate King Charles III.
Brilliant stuff.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff. And it does look like the sun's out for you as well, Sophie. So hopefully it stays nice and dry and warm for you, and lots of people can enjoy their street parties. Thank you very much.
Well, if it's not sunny where you are, we'll bring you some sunshine now with Camilla Tominey looking resplendent in yellow.
This is meant to be bringing some spring cheer to a rather rain-soaked day.
It is.
It's been a damp weekend, hasn't it? But that hasn't dampened our spirits.
No, it never does. And I think actually we have to ask ourselves, did the Palace undercook this a bit? Because there's always fears before royal events. I remember this with the Golden Jubilee, with the Platinum Jubilee. Will people turn out? They always do. What was with the kind of slightly apologetic run-up to this event? Oh, well, you know, he's being crowned. You don't have to get involved if you don't want to. People do want to get involved. We always see this. We see people coming here in their droves, as they did yesterday, albeit dressed in anoraks and with their umbrellas up. And I think if you've got that kind of global event, I mean, what was quite nice about it from a patriotic point of view is that London is once again the focal point of the world. The world is watching how we do these things, and I thought we executed it beautifully.
So interesting that you say that, because I got this sense from King Charles yesterday that he is a humble man. I mean, he was looking out at the people yesterday from the balcony, looking grateful. He
And that
seemed to be
image-
thanking the people.
That
for coming.
image that's been taken, we've seen that recreated in films, but we've never seen that image of King and Queen looking out onto the crowds. How could you fail to be wowed? Interestingly, you know, Charles made his first balcony appearance in 1951. He was 2. It was Trooping the Colour. We then remember him being on the balcony for his mother's coronation, aged 4. Now he's back there as king, and it must have added significance because he was the longest-serving heir apparent in history, and because we've all been been waiting with him, haven't we, to fulfil that destiny.
And what do you think of this picture here?
It's fabulous, isn't it?
Because I've never seen anything like it before, taken from behind.
It's amazing. I think that's by Chris Jackson from Getty, who was allowed into the throne room to take those photographs along with Hugo Bernand. He's the official coronation photographer. Those snaps, I think, are coming out later today or perhaps tomorrow. Also, I mean, it's slightly surreal to see King Charles and Queen Camilla. That's an image that we never thought we would see back in the 90s. So to see them on the front pages of the newspapers, it's actually happened. Slightly surreal, but they're now part of the public's conscience.
Yeah, but just the fact that, I mean, obviously there's the Camilla issues that some people have. But just, I mean, from my perspective, and we're not dissimilar in age, it's just the fact that we have a king and queen for the first time in our lifetime.
Yes, precisely that. Also, that balcony shot. Is there anything wrong with kind of putting on display a blended family? How many people watching this have got parents who have broken up, who have remarried, stepbrothers, half-sisters? That's what that display was. I thought it was really touching, actually, to see Queen Camilla's own grandchildren and her great-nephew there in the Page of Honour role, along with Prince George. That's what that family looks like. I mean, sometimes I've described the royals in the past as not so much nuclear as thermonuclear. We saw that a bit with Prince Harry and the Duke of York, you know, my goodness, the spares, and didn't they seem it? But at the same time, I think it's actually representative of modern Britain, really. And the same could be said for the ceremony. It was inclusive. It was unprecedented in him paying his respects to people of all faiths rather than just the Anglican Church. And that's what the royal family's got to do. The royal family isn't going to survive if it doesn't represent its subjects in all their technicolor and glory.
Just quickly, who have you got on the show today?
Lucy Fraser's coming in, the Culture Secretary, who was in the Abbey yesterday, so she can tell us how DCMS managed to pull off this grand-scale event. Robert Buckland's coming in. He's the first man ever to be knighted by the King as King Charles. I'm also going to be speaking to Elsa Anderson, who's brilliant. She was not only head of comms for the palace, but she also used to look after the Archbishop of Canterbury, so she can tell us what she made of the ceremony.
Lovely stuff.
Fabulous.
We'll see you at 9:30.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Camilla.
When you're watching, and I'll do this bit. Honestly, she's so demanding, you have no idea. This is GB News live from Buckingham Palace. Leave me alone. We're going to be live in Lutterworth as people there get ready for today's big coronation lunch.
That's next.
Well done.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, welcome back. The time is 9:21. You are watching and listening to GB News Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie, live from Buckingham Palace.
Lots to crack through in the next 5 minutes. I just want to... David Starkey's popped back, and so I just want a quick word with you, David, about your standout moment from this moment of history that we saw yesterday.
It was the king with the crown, the orb, the sceptre, the amazing imperial robe, with 2 bishops supporting him. It's like a scene out of a medieval... I'm a part medieval historian. I was watching an illuminated manuscript come alive, stepping out. They weren't really stepping out of the gold, they were stepping with the gold. Quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that we did get that when we were sort of led to believe it's going to be almost a very modern service. It was the opposite.
Totally the opposite. The congregation outside, remember this Coronation Theatre, the core of the thing, with the choir all in red and white, then these amazing rituals. The congregation, yes, in the nave, that was unlike any other coronation at all. On the other hand, within the choir, within the Coronation Theatre, it was almost back to 973.
Yeah, well, yeah.
What is 1,000 years in the history of the English monarchy?
Exactly,
a mere blink
right.
of an eyelid. Yes.
David, it's been a joy to talk to you, as always. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes.
OK, shall we see what's happening? That was all yesterday. Let's see what's happening today, should we? Do you fancy a trip to Lutterworth?
Let's go to Lutterworth, and Will Hollis is there for us. Good morning to you, Will.
Good morning. It's getting busy here in Lutterworth in South Leicestershire. You can see as far as the eye can see, or at least the camera, all of these tables getting set up. You can see Union Jack tablecloths getting put out and loads of people coming to join. We'll give them a quick wave. Hello, hello there. But listen, it's not all about tablecloths and buntings. It's also about what you can do at street parties like this. 10,000 of them or so up and down the country. And at quite a few street parties, you might see one of these. Can you guess what it is? It's, of course, Punch and Judy. And Clive, you're in charge of the Punch and Judy here at Lutterworth. Punch and Judy, why are we still doing it now for this royal occasion?
Well, it's ever popular and it's incredible demand every time we have a royal occasion. The Jubilee last year, the phone was ringing off the hook, and it's been the same again this year. But it's great to be here in Lutterworth, yeah.
I'm sure they're very glad. Do kids like Punch and Judy? Because I was quite scared of it as a kid.
People love a good Punch and Judy show. And to answer your question, Punch and Judy goes back to the reign of King Charles II, 1662. That's his official birthday, so he's been around a long time.
So this is quite special for King Charles III. What does it mean to you seeing this coronation? Are you a little bit of a Charles fan?
Do you know what? I think every Punch and Judy performer is a huge fan of the monarchy just at this very moment. We need a bit of an uplift after COVID. We've had a hard time, and here we are out entertaining the public. Yeah.
And is it really just you behind there? You don't have an army of people doing Punch and Judy? Is it just one man doing Punch and Judy?
It is. It's the ultimate one-man entertainment, really. It's a big stand-up routine. Me and the puppets, of course, you know.
There is, that's Mr. Punch. Clive, thank you very much. We better go and see what's going on with the rest of the party. See you later, and see you later, Mr. Punch. That's the way to do it. We'll be here all day in Lutterworth. Lots of things going on, of course. Stephen and Ellie.
Love it. It's so
Will.
very British.
Brilliant. I was about to say,
Absolutely
best of
love
British.
it.
Thank you so much, Will. Enjoy Lutterworth. It looks brilliant this morning.
Well, look, so many getting in touch. Thank you so much. And it was an emotional day yesterday. Jill says, I had a cry when our king first arrived and walked down the aisle. I
Yeah.
can understand that. I really can.
You can, as Camilla was just saying, many of us have been waiting with King Charles, haven't we, for this moment, and to see that happen was truly emotional. June says, my favourite part of the coronation was watching Prince Louis sing the national anthem. Only 5 years old, I had a lump in my throat and I thought I was going to cry.
Yeah, Elspeth says, has anyone mentioned the care and attention given throughout the whole service by His Majesty's handsome kilted attaché, Johnny? Elspeth, calm down, Elspeth. He tried to be unobtrusive even though he was in the forefront. He's been in that role for a while, hasn't he? And again, phenomenal job. These people just know what they're doing. Fantastic.
Yeah, they do.
But anyway, nicely spotted. And June says, my favourite part of the coronation. Oh, you did that. Prince Louis, you did that one, didn't you?
Yes, the children,
Oh, I did.
the Wales children, they were a hit, weren't they?
Steve says one of the most notable things to me was the role of Penny Mordaunt. She looked resplendent in the robe she was wearing. Yeah, she did. That is it from us. We're back tomorrow morning.
Yes, we are. A
so
treat.
Remember that. Special treat for you. Camilla Tomlin is here in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the argument